Chapter 27:27. May's words made the surrounding people's gazes towards Yi-Ching Luo instantly changed. Declaring war with the Overlord? Was this a joke? But, thinking about it carefully, he felt that May's words made sense. They immediately distanced themselves from Yi-Ching Luo and the others, afraid that they might offend the Overlord. Seeing May's appearance, Yi-Ching Luo's gaze flickered slightly. Faintly, she felt that something was amiss. Earlier, this lady called May's injury was obviously very serious. But now, she was standing right in front of her. From the looks of it, she didn't seem to have suffered any internal injuries. Could it be that this lady called May had some miraculous medicine on her, which could quickly heal internal injuries? She has such a heavy enmity towards you. Peach took a look at May and raised her brows as she leaned towards Yi-Ching Luo and asked in a low voice, "You know her? His rotten peach blossom." Yi-Ching Luo shot a glance at Dmo Xian. Peach replied with an "oh" and nodded. "She's a little strange. It's best to be careful." Her gaze swept across the surroundings as she suppressed her voice to the lowest. I asked Peach 3,000 to check on her information, but they could only find some superficial information. She is someone sent by the Sun family in East Continent. On the surface, she is accompanying Sun family's collateral relative Sun Yutong to take part in the Miao tribe's Sanus election. But in actual fact, she is representing the Sun family, coming to North Continent, to help Sun family to make friends with various powerhouses. Sun family? Yi-Ching Luo's brows rose as East Continent's premier son's face surfaced in her mind. The Sun family you mentioned, is it the Sun family that I'm thinking of? Amen. Peach nodded. It's because Premier Sun exhausted his entire family's assets to bid for his Sky Recovery Serene grass, causing his current position to be extremely unstable. That's why he came up with this method, to find a few backers to stabilize his premier position. Peach paused as her expression turned grave. There's one more point which is very strange. Other than her identity and news of entering the Sun family, before this, everything else about her is blank. Blank? Under Peach 3000's investigation, her background was blank. It was indeed very strange. So, I'm guessing that her background might have been purposely erased. Peach pursed her lips and continued. There is another possibility. That is, before and after she entered the Sun family, she changed her appearance and identity. Saying that, Peach deliberately pointed at Yi-Ching Luo's face. Since Yi-Ching Luo could disguise herself, of course, May could also disguise herself. It didn't matter which possibility Peach guessed. That was a potential danger. Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes as she softly replied with an "N. I will be careful." She could feel it herself. This woman called May. He was very hostile to her. In this, it was absolutely not only because of Dmo Xian. It was also very possible that it was because of other reasons. He chose to enter the Sun family and work for them. There is a high possibility that it was because the Sun family and her, Yi-Ching Luo, had formed an enmity with the world's mercenaries. If Lil Luo doesn't like her, just kill her. Dmo Xian stood by the side, looking at Yi-Ching Luo's grave expression. His slender fingers caressed her face. Yi-Ching Luo was stunned. The indifferent lines softened. She smiled and held Dmo Xian's hand. Not for the time being. If we don't find out who she is, even if we kill one May, there will be a second, a third May. Dmo Xian's fingers slowly slid on her tightly knitted brows, whispering, "I will protect Lil Luo." Chapter 27:28. Peach fed a mouthful of dog food again. She expressed her exhaustion as she silently turned around and left. Yi-Ching Luo and Dmo Xian smiled at each other. The uneasiness in her heart was also soothed by Dmo Xian. Her fingers pinched Dmo Xian's big palm as she looked at the few people behind her. "Let's go in and see how Yi's preparation is going." Saying that, she took the lead and walked towards the entrance of the Miao tribe. Peach seemed to have thought of something as her expression changed slightly as she quickly caught up with Yi-Ching Luo's footsteps and was about to say something to her. May, who had been ignored, spoke in a shrill voice once again. "Miss Yi, have you been exposed and fled?" Yiqing Luo's footsteps paused as she glanced sideways at Plum's beautiful face. Her lips curled into a calm and languid smile. Miss Plum is not old yet, and your eyes are not working well. Which one of your eyes saw me running away in panic? Not sure if it was Yiqing Luo's words that agitated Plum. Plum's expression suddenly twisted. You slut, just a vixen who seduces men everywhere. I like to see, when this backer of yours sees through your true colors, will he still allow you to rely on him? Yiqing Luo snorted lightly. It said that a person's heart is dirty. Everything is dirty. So in Miss Plum's eyes, women can only rely on men and not on themselves? She paused as her smile was filled with ridicule. To Miss Plum, as long as you can get a position, even if it's Premier's son who is old enough to be your grandfather, you can do it. Indeed, everyone is dirty. You. Plum's face suddenly turned steely green as though it was covered with dark clouds. She raised her hand and pointed at Yiqing Luo's direction as her whole body trembled. What nonsense are you talking about? Your heart is the dirty one. You dare to say that you're not relying on the Overlord to show off? Didn't you immediately find another home after being abandoned by the Overlord? Didn't you want to declare war with the Overlord? That looked as though she had been poked in her sore spot and flew into a rage out of humiliation. Yiqing Luo lazily moved her pink lips as she spat out word by word. No, it's not. May's face was ferocious, the veins on her hands bulging under her sleeves. The poisonous chill in his eyes seemed to want to devour Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she sneered and shot a glance at May, immediately dragging Dmo Xian as they walked into the Miao stockade village. The disdainful ridicule was obvious. May was so angry that her whole body was trembling. The hatred and coldness in his eyes made people shudder. How could she take this lying down? She was an abandoned woman who had been abandoned by the Overlord. Why did he have to be so arrogant in front of her? Clearly, they were just women who had sacrificed themselves for the sake of status. Why did he have to pretend to be virtuous? She hissed in a hoarse voice, You Luo, you. Before he could finish his words, the young lady who had already entered the Miao village suddenly looked over. That pair of charming eyes seemed to be stained with a myriad of frost. Ling Mei's throat felt as if it was gripped by an invisible, ice-cold hand. It sealed all her voice. That young lady suddenly curled her lips. Her smile was extremely beautiful, but it revealed an eerie chill. Miss May, don't embarrass yourself. May's heart tightened as her pale lips trembled. In the end, she still couldn't spit out a single word. Indeed, if she continued to pester, that would be asking for humiliation. Based on ability or eloquence, she was not Yi Luo's opponent. Chapter 27-29. After Yiqing Luo and the rest walked far away, the crowd who remained at the entrance of the Miao tribe to spectate all set their gazes on May. There were some men's gazes which were completely naked, not concealing their yearning. Some of the powerhouse's representatives walked up, one hand touching their chin, their eyes sizing up May from top to bottom. He looked gentle and refined, and had a certain temperament. But the words they said were so vulgar that it made people nauseous. Beauty, you're so beautiful. Why not follow me? It's better than Old Man Sunday Beauty. Compared to Old Man's Son, we are more satisfied with you. The few of us, you can choose as many as you want. If you follow us, I guarantee that you'll have a good life in the future. As compared to Sun Family, it's not much different. One after another, vulgar words made May's originally steely green face turned even uglier. She was forced to retreat several steps by the few wretched men. All of you get lost. May leaned against her carriage as she speedily ran up the carriage. Little beauty, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. One of the men stretched out his hand as he grabbed May's arm. After touching the lady's tender skin, uncontrollably, he caressed May's arm. The laughter in his mouth became even more sinister. The man's action also made the other men interested. They all crowded around May. May's expression instantly changed as her eyes turned sinister. All of you get lost. All of you get lost. Just based on you bunch of toads, and you want to lay a finger on me. Those few men laughed even more wantonly. The surrounding people, as usual, didn't care about it. Earlier, when they faced Yi Luo, berated him, ridiculed him, they were as cold as now. Those who came to participate in the Miao tribe's sacred maiden selection were mostly small and medium-sized powerhouses. Naturally, their quality was relatively not that high. Seeing that no one around stopped them, they became more and more excited. One by one, they stretched out their hands, not caring that they were in public, as they directly touched May's body. When a hand came into contact with his body, he felt a chill run down his spine. May raised her hand, and with a cracking sound, it broke. She took a few steps back, her face slightly pale. The man whose wrist was broken screamed in pain. The men were immediately enraged. B*TCH. Aren't you here to act coquettishly and seek a backer? Why are you still pretending to be a chaste saintess? You've already slept with an old man in his 50s, and you're still scared of sleeping with us? Are you looking down on me? I'm going to sleep with you today. A few slapping sounds could be heard. The men grabbed May's wrist and slapped her a few times. May, who had been beaten, was about to retaliate. However, before he could make a move, her eyes widened abruptly. A black mist quickly entered her eyes. He slowly retracted his counterattack. She gradually calmed down. A few men dragged Plum, who had been beaten silly, and walked towards the direction of another denser forest. The onlookers revealed a tacit smile. However, no one noticed anything unusual. For example, May, who had been struggling fiercely after breaking a man's wrist, why didn't she struggle anymore? For example, when she was being dragged by a few men into the dense forest, why did she calmly follow them? For example, May's long hair, which fell down after being caught, covered her face. Chapter 2730. After passing the inspection of the Miao tribe guards, Yiqing Luo and the rest followed the female attendant's lead and directly arrived at the Miao tribe's largest public square, which was also the place where the sacred maiden selection was held. At this time, the Miao tribe's plaza was set up with about 500 long tables and soft cushions. The long table was filled with Miao delicacies and pastries. Because of the existence of the ghost martial artist, Yiqing Luo and the rest were still arranged to be seated at the first row of the long table. The group of people sat down in succession. Because it was the first row, many of the forces that had arrived long ago shifted their gazes over to them. They whispered to each other from time to time. He seemed to be guessing their identities. After Yiqing Luo sat down, she searched around for Miao Yi's shadow. However, after looking around, he did not see Miao Yi in the surroundings of the plaza. She took a look at Dmo Xian, who had been hugging her slender waist tightly, and whispered something into his ear. Dmo Xian's body stiffened slightly as he shook his head. The two eyes under the mask flickered, showing extreme displeasure. Yiqing Luo helplessly patted the back of his hand. Dmo Xian's eyes then revealed a smile. Then, both of them stood up and walked away from the long table. They lowered their voices and asked the waitress standing at the side, "Where is your Miao family's second miss?" Second miss? When a maid heard this form of address, she felt a little unfamiliar. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she tried to probe. That is, Miao Yi. She should be considered as your Miao family's eldest young miss, right? Miao Yi. The maid's expression changed slightly. Suddenly, she raised her head. In order to display a humble and courteous attitude, these Miao female attendants naturally could not look directly at the guests' faces. Because of this, the female attendant stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo's face for some time before her expression sunk as she speedily retreated a few steps. You are Yi Luo. The waitress's voice wasn't loud, but it was definitely not small. It also attracted the attention of many people. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. There was an inexplicable feeling of unease in his heart. Descend. Peach stood up and patted Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Immediately after, her eyes darkened and she shouted coldly at the maid, "Scram!" The female attendant was so scared that her face turned pale as she couldn't help but take several glances at Yiqing Luo's direction. He almost rolled and crawled out of the square. This scene caused the surrounding guests to discuss incessantly. What's going on? Yi Qing Luo looked at the Peach coldly. Peach sighed. I just wanted to tell you that he had yet to finish his sentence. A person wearing the 3,000 peach blossom robe walked over quickly. The man leaned close to Peach's ear and whispered something. Peach's expression darkened. She whispered some orders, and the man immediately left. Peach's expression was grave. She pursed her lips and was about to hook onto Yi Qing Luo's shoulder, deliberating over her words, thinking of how to open her mouth. Just as he raised his hand, she immediately withdrew her hand when a cold gaze landed on her. Peach coughed softly. Well, it's not a big deal for Yi. For her, it's also a kind of growth. I think you shouldn't interfere with her holy maiden selection. She paused and added another sentence. The informant I've arranged in the Miao tribe will take good care of Yi. The anxiety on Yi Qing Luo's face froze. Her eyelashes fluttered and drooped down. Peach's words made her more or less guess something. But there was no denying that what Peach said was reasonable. Only by experiencing setbacks could one grow. This was Miao Yi's growth. Chapter 2731. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes. She had put the pressure of Xian's poison on Miao Yi alone. She shouldn't disturb Miao Yi's heart at this time. She should believe it. Miao Yi, who was able to resolutely choose to leave the Miao tribe with the Miao Gu king in the face of unequal treatment, had her own hot-bloodedness. Say just now, what did your subordinates tell you? Yi Qing Luo put Miao Yi's matter aside for the time being. Peach looked around. The surrounding people, because of the interlude just now, had set their sights on them. It was too conspicuous to stand. Yi Qing Luo pulled Dmo Xian back to their seats. Peach sat down next to her and spoke with a dignified expression. Just now, when you were being troubled by the Sun family, I specially left a spy from Peach Blossom 3000 sect there. Yi Qing Luo. Someone was finding trouble with her, and Peach just left a spy to watch the fun. What a good friend. Peach didn't have the mood to joke and continued. After you left, Plum was entangled by a few small forces. Speaking of which, it's a bit strange. Huh? Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. Peach paused and lowered her voice to be extremely mysterious. When Plum was entangled, she resisted very fiercely, but after being slapped a few times by those people, she obediently followed those people and went to the small forest. Yin Xiao, he was also listening by the side. Small forest? Perhaps. Her previous resistance was deliberately done for others to see. In actual fact, she wanted to take the opportunity to climb up to those people's forces. If that's the case, I won't say it's strange. Peach shook her head. My spy told me that Plum walked out of the small forest alone. Moreover, she became younger and more beautiful. Her whole body exuded a very strong charm. Yin Xiao Yi touched her chin. Maybe she was nourished and satisfied. Probably not. Peach pursed her lips tightly. Her brows slightly sunk, and her voice deepened. Plum and those men entered the small forest for a very short time. Less than half an incense's time. Generally speaking, those men, no matter what, it was impossible for me to walk out of the grove in the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Yi Qing Luo understood the deeper meaning in her words. She pondered for a moment and said, even if it's half an incense worth of time, Plum has really been nourished. Then it should be a few men accompanying Plum out. Most importantly, my spies also heard screams. Peach nodded. After Plum came out, my spy wanted to continue following her, but he was almost discovered by her. That is to say, after May came out of the little forest, not only did her appearance change, even her strength had increased. Yi Qing Luo understood the meaning behind Peach's words. After a moment of silence, her fingertips gently tapped on the table. If that's really the case, then we can only find those men to find out what's going on. I'm afraid we won't be able to find it. Peach shook her head. After my spy was almost discovered by Plum, he chose to enter the grove to look for those men. But there was no trace of those men in the entire grove. Chapter 2732. Missing. These two words made Yi Qing Luo's mind suddenly come up with a thought. But that thought was fleeting, and she couldn't catch it in time. Yi Qing Luo frowned. Looks like this May not only has a strange background, she should be hiding some secret. Yes, so I specially asked someone to investigate what happened after May entered the northern continent and discovered. Peach paused again and clenched her fists. Her voice was filled with anger. Do you still remember? These 1 month, those rumors about you being abandoned by the Overlord? She's the one who manipulated it? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. Yes, all the public opinion is manipulated by her. Peach gritted her teeth. That day at the Peach Blossom restaurant, she was the one who leaked the news of your private room. She was also the one who brought Miss Sun and other women who were very jealous of you to stir up trouble in the restaurant. She kept leading the crowd to cut off the relationship between you and His Majesty. After Yi Qing Luo heard Peach's words, she pondered for a while and asked, Have you heard of the Palace of Darkness? Of course I have heard of it. Recently it's been in an uproar, claiming to surpass the Imperial Palace and become the #1 palace in Nirvana Realm. I heard that it has attracted a large number of forces to seek shelter and cooperation. Peach frowned slightly. This May is indeed very close to the messenger from the Palace of Darkness. What you mean is, May is from the Palace of Darkness? Messenger? Hearing how Peach addressed Yin Junfei, Yi Qing Luo felt strange. You haven't seen the messenger from the Palace of Darkness? Yes, Peach replied, but this messenger is very arrogant and especially likes to be flattered. In order to maintain her mystery, she always wears a veil and will not show her real face. Yi Qing Luo nodded thoughtfully. If May is from the Palace of Darkness, then I'm afraid this person from the Palace of Darkness has the intention to target you. Peach thought of something again. Oh yes, the day when May appeared in the northern continent was the day we left Qinyue's sect. It was that day when May appeared. The day they left Qinyue's sect? Yi Qing Luo suddenly recalled that day on the street. What she sensed was a strong murderous intent. Could it be the murderous aura released by Plum? She appeared as a collateral relative of the Sun family, Sun Yutong's elder sister. After that, she went around to inquire about you. Moreover, she was very interested in your name. Name? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. His guess was right. She had crossed paths with May before, although she had changed her appearance. However, his way of doing things was still the same as before. May would pay attention to her. It must be because he suspected that she was Yi Qing Luo. Later on, maybe because of your face, she believed that you're not Yi Qing Luo. But she still has a deep hostility towards you. Peach probed. Qing Luo, have you thought of who this May is? No. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as she had no clue at all. Her hand, which was knocking on the table, paused. But I know that she believes that I'm not Yi Qing Luo, not because of my disguise technique, but because the envoy from Secluded Palace doesn't believe that I'm Yi Qing Luo. You also know the emissary of the Palace of Darkness? Peach understood the deeper meaning of this sentence. Chapter 2733. She paused for a moment and raised her eyes slightly as her gaze went past Peach and landed on Yin Xiao Yi. Following that, word by word, she spoke clearly. Yin Junfei. What? Yin Xiao Yi stood up abruptly, and the long table in front of her shook because of her movement. Xiao Yi. Xiao Jin immediately pulled Yin Xiao Yi's arm and used one arm to hold her shoulders. Sit down first. Yin Xiao Yi sat back down on the soft cushion under Xiao Jin's strength. She pursed her lips as her eyes were filled with a cold intent. The envoy from Secluded Palace. Is Yin Junfei? Now she's called Yin Fei Fei. Yi Qing Luo narrated the process of Sun Yutong and May stopping her in a concise manner. She thought I'm Yi Qing Luo's fake, so May naturally thought so too. Which means, May is indeed from Secluded Palace. Peach's tone turned solemn. If that's the case, why did Secluded Palace appear? For? Peach raised her eyes and looked at DMO Xian. Now that Secluded Palace is in the limelight and Overlord is unable to return to the palace to manage, there are already many people saying Overlord's #1 legend will probably have to give up his position. Secluded Palace was currently in an uproar, and it accurately grasped every cultivator's inner thoughts. Using various gimmicks of being able to advance quickly in a short period of time and would ascend to the upper realms in future, they roped in one force after another. In a short period of time, they were able to catch up to the Imperial Palace's reputation. Such an existence. There was indeed hope to force the Imperial Palace to retreat. Those powerhouses who were originally dissatisfied with the Imperial Palace and the Overlord were naturally happy to see this happen. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and met Dmo Xian's eyes as a glint of warmth flashed past her eyes. I will not let the Imperial Palace's legend be occupied by a small palace with unknown origins. She would not let Secluded Palace become the #1 palace in Nirvana Realm. She would not let Xian's Imperial Palace be defeated. This Secluded Palace sounds a little strange. Jun Qingwu, who had been silent, frowned slightly. No matter if it's Heaven Realm or God Realm, there's no way to obtain a permanent advancement in a short period of time. Generally speaking, there was indeed some kind of medicine or secret arts to be able to advance in a short period of time. But that was only for a short period of time. Moreover, his body would be greatly affected, like the Netherworld Palace, where they were able to quickly ascend to the mystic rank and maintain stability. Even Jun Qingwu had never seen it before. No, there is a way. She paused, looked at the crowd, and said, Qi Yavin. Everyone's eyes widened. Yiqing Luo propped her chin. Furthermore, it's different from the profound Yin Qi in the West Continent. It's another type, a higher-level profound Yin Qi. In the past, the dark forces had used the mysterious Yin Qi to awaken the greed in some people's hearts. Seizing this greed, his consciousness was controlled by the mysterious Yin Qi. Once the mystical Yin Qi entered the body, under the control of the mystical Yin Qi, the mystical Yin Qi could quickly raise the mystic grade, and while the mystical Yin Qi was still in the body, it could maintain the stability of the mystic grade. However, the longer the mysterious Yin Qi stayed in the body, the stronger it became. The mysterious Yin Qi would completely devour them, turning them into the mysterious Yin Qi's puppet. Mysterious Yin Qi. The dark forces aren't, Peach said in shock. Chapter 2734. For Yin Zhanfei to be able to become an emissary of the Palace of Darkness, it means that the Palace of Darkness is definitely related to the dark forces. The cup in Yin Xiaoyi's hand was knocked onto the ground by her. Yin Xiaoyi's expression surged with some kind of emotion. Yiqing Luo took a look at her and continued, Of course, that bunch of people from the dark forces, what status do they have in the Palace of Seclusion? We have no idea. The only thing that could be concluded was, with the strength of Wolf Saint Art and the others, it was impossible for them to win. They definitely wouldn't be able to build a dark, secluded palace in such a short period of time and develop at such a godly speed that it was comparable to the Emperor Palace. Therefore, there were not only dark forces in the Dark Palace, there might be other hidden forces. If the Gloomy Palace is really related to the dark forces, then the existence of the Gloomy Palace will affect the balance of the Nirvana realm. Jun Qingwu looked at Yiqing Luo. I heard that the balance historian had once interfered in this matter, but I'd not expected such a thing to happen. Looks like I'll have to make a trip over to the balance historian's side. This matter must be known to the people of the upper realm. If you have the channels, inform the people in charge as soon as possible to come down and check the situation. Yiqing Luo nodded in agreement. The existence of the dark forces itself is an existence that affects the balance of Nirvana realm. Behind another palace is obviously a much stronger force than the dark forces. Hearing this, Jun Qingwu's expression became increasingly heavy. She was just about to say something when her gaze fell onto Dmo Xian and revealed a sliver of hesitation. Yiqing Luo understood and gave a smile towards Jun Qingwu. She raised her hand, which was intertwined with Dmo Xian's fingers, and said softly, You don't have to worry about Xian. I will take good care of him. You know, the goo poison in his body, and... Jun Qingwu pursed her lips, and a trace of emotion appeared on her face. I know. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways, her eyes gentle. No matter if Yi is the sacred maiden or not, I will think of a way to let the sacred maiden help Xian cure the goo. She paused and smiled. As for the rest, I will protect him. After Jun Qingwu returned from the upper realm, she specially looked for her in private. They talked about Dmo Xian's matters. Dmo Xian went to the upper realm. He was indeed going to do something very dangerous. Even though Jun Qingwu didn't say it out loud, she only mentioned it briefly. But Yiqing Luo roughly understood that this matter was related to the divine phoenix's profound heart jade in her body. And in the upper realm, Dmo Xian had divided his own strength and created a doppelganger to guard beside Yiqing Luo. As a result, he was almost seriously injured in the upper realm. After that, because his doppelganger was in the Miao tribe's forbidden land, in order to be intimate with her for a short while, he had expended too much energy. When that clone returned to Dmo Xian's body, Dmo Xian's injuries were getting more and more serious. Dmo Xian was now in the lower realm of Nirvana realm. Even if he was injured, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. However, the situation now was different. Dmo Xian was poisoned by the loveworm. Under the influence of a loveworm, his thoughts revolved around Yiqing Luo alone. In addition, there was the unknown factor of Gloomy Palace. No one was able to guess whether the Palace of Darkness was targeting Yiqing Luo or the Imperial Palace, or perhaps targeting the entire Nirvana realm. But no matter which point he aimed at, to them, it was a potential danger. This is too risky. Jun Qingwu frowned, still unable to be assured. If the Overlord was injured in the Nirvana realm. Chapter 2735. I know what you're worried about. Yiqing Luo smiled as she patted Jun Qingwu's shoulder. If I'm injured, Xian will be in more pain than me, so you can rest assured that I won't let anything happen to me, nor will I let anything happen to Xian. Jun Qingwu still wanted to say something. Suddenly, a deep voice floated over from the side. What are you dawdling about for? There are those few old men around this lass. Are you still afraid that something will happen to her? It was Gui Wu. His extremely young face had a serious and calm expression on it, but it didn't look out of place at all. Jun Qingwu was slightly stunned as her beautiful eyes looked towards Gui Wu's direction, as though she was hesitating about what Gui Wu said. Zhou Mo stretched out his hand and hooked it around Gui Wu's neck as he smiled. That's right, Ah Wu and I are here. What are you worried about? Gui Wu frowned as his gaze turned slightly cold as he looked towards Zhou Mo. Zhou Mo was all smiles as he turned Gui Wu's head to the other side, before smiling at Jun Qingwu. Don't be fooled by Ah Wu's unwillingness to help. You can be at ease. As long as this young master stays here, he will definitely stay here as well. Go in peace. Gui Wu's face turned black as he remained silent. This was considered as a tacit agreement. Jun Qingwu looked at Gui Wu for some time. Following that, she looked towards Yiqing Luo. Then, I'll trouble you to take care of the Overlord. I'll rush back immediately. Saying that, Jun Qingwu directly got up and left the Miao Stockade village. Zhou Mo was all smiles as he sent Jun Qingwu off. His body moved as he pushed the peach aside and got closer to Yiqing Luo. Between his brows, there was a smile. Little Qing Luo. Zhou Mo called out these 3 words. Suddenly, he felt a gush of cold current. His body shook as his gaze followed the direction of the cold current. He met with Dmo Xian's treacherous cold gaze. Zhou Mo's body, which was just about to reach Yiqing Luo's ear, slowly moved backwards. Xian, don't scare him. Yiqing Luo pinched Dmo Xian's palm and glanced sideways at him. What do you want to say? Zhou Mo took a look at Dmo Xian and then looked behind him. Under the headscarf, the 2 ears kept twitching, trying to eavesdrop. Using a voice that only the 2 of them could hear, he said, Little Wildcat listens to you the most, and you know how I feel towards Little Wildcat. When you're free, put in a few good words for me in front of Little Wildcat. How about that? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Is young Master Mo begging me? No. Yours truly is making a deal with you. Zhou Mo shook his head solemnly. I'll lend Au to you. You can use him however you want and for as long as you want. And you just need to put in a good word for me in front of the Little Wildcat. You're not losing out at all in this deal. It's so worth it. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and shot a glance at Gui Wu before looking at Zoemo. This be asterisk starred, selling out his teammates. He couldn't be any more straightforward. But she didn't intend to let Zoemo abduct her little cat so easily. Although, she could tell that little cat didn't have no feelings towards Zoemo. But little cat's identity and Zoemo's identity, if they really wanted to be together, it might be a little difficult. After all, little cat was the beast race's princess, and she had signed a blood pact with her. Before the pact was rescinded, little cat had to stay by her side. If Zoemo wanted to be together with little cat, then he had to follow little cat and stay by her side. Zoemo was there. Gui would definitely be there, with 2 more helpers. Chapter 2736. But how long could this last for? That would depend on Zoemo himself to think it through. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat and raised a finger, replying in a serious manner. How am I worth it? How am I not losing out? I'm losing out big, all right? And you're using my little cat as a transaction? She purposely emphasized the last sentence. Zoemo's expression changed instantly, putting on a pitiful expression. Yes, I'm wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I'm begging you, all right? Yiqing Luo smiled and nodded satisfactorily. All right, Zoemo. Damn, how could such a cute little wild cat have such a shameless owner? Zoemo's face turned black as he returned to his seat. Kitty Lee immediately swayed her ears and rushed over. Her bright eyes stared at him. Why are you looking for sister? What did you whisper to sister? And you're purposely hiding it from Kitty. Don't you want Kitty to hear it? The next few questions were all filled with unhappiness. Looking at the adorable face in front of him, Zoemo's heart instantly felt the warmth of spring. He curved his red phoenix eyes and hooked his finger at Kitty Lee. Come closer, I'll tell you secretly. Kitty Lee immediately moved her little head over. A warm kiss landed on the side of her cheek, on the human ear that had materialized, accompanied by the young man's magnetic and seductive voice. Little wild cat, are you jealous? Kitty Lee's little body suddenly stiffened. Her cheeks flushed red with a whoosh. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the lovers' little quarrels. She leaned on Mo Xian's body as her head rested on his arm, her fingers subconsciously playing with Mo Xian's fingers. Jun Qingwu's departure didn't attract too much attention. Basically, all the attention was still on Yiqing Luo and Mo Xian. Yiqing Luo felt that. These people could gossip about her for 3 days and 3 nights, and they wouldn't even find it annoying. Vaguely, probably listening to what they were saying. Similar to the young lady who was abandoned by the Overlord still dares to show her face in public. Another example was the abandoned woman who was abandoned by the Overlord, provoked another man. Another example was, in any case, it was all the same old words. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered. Those people probably saw Yiqing Luo's thick skin and didn't have the confidence to refute. He spoke even louder than before on purpose. There were also quite a number of young ladies who deliberately accompanied him, gathered near the first row and shouted at the top of their lungs, belittling Yiqing Luo in various ways in an attempt to attract Mo Xian's attention and thus dump her in public. Of course, there was a group of people sitting in the first row. From the beginning to the end, he was just talking and laughing to himself. He treated the group of people who were discussing as if they were air. This kind of atmosphere lasted until a loud, welcoming sound rang out. The emissary of the Palace of Darkness has arrived. The representative of the Sun family has arrived. The words gloomy Palace of Darkness instantly caused most of the factions to stand up and look over. At the entrance of the square, Yin Jinfei was escorted to her seat by everyone. The faces of the waitresses and waitresses were filled with flattering smiles. There were even 2 old men dressed in the Miao tribe's elder's attire. They cupped their hands and stepped forward. They had gained a lot of face for the gloomy palace. Currently, all the powerhouses wanted to collaborate with the gloomy palace and even sent their own heirs over to be disciples. Chapter 2737. With the gloomy palace's envoy taking the lead. Sun Yutong and Mei, who walked in after that, appeared extremely cold and quiet beside the 2 of them. On the other side, on seeing Yin Junfei walking in, Yin Xiaoyi's originally relaxed emotions suddenly congealed. Her eyes swiftly shot towards Yin Junfei. Her eyes seemed to be filled with a raging storm. Xiao Jin's hand was placed on Yin Xiaoyi's shoulder. His broad and warm palm slowly soothed the agitation in Yin Xiaoyi's heart. Yiqing Luo laid lazily in Mo Xian's arms, changing into a more comfortable position as she squinted her eyes, looking at that veiled lady. The corners of her lips, bit by bit, curled into a cold arc. Looked like those who were seeking their own humiliation were about to form a team again. Just like what Yiqing Luo had guessed. Yin Junfei was respectfully welcomed by two elders as she came to the first row of the public square's guest seating. The Miao tribe had divided the seating into two rows, left and right. The two rows on the left and right, each row could seat about 20 people. Yiqing Luo and the rest sat on the first row on the right. The elder led Yin Junfei, Mei and the rest toward the first row on the left. But when Yin Junfei was turning to the left, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. "Madam Envoy, what's the matter?" Second Elder Miao also stopped in his tracks as he asked in a flattering manner. Yin Junfei's gaze swept across as she looked towards the seats on the right, in the direction of that row of 10 over people. Her gaze stopped on Yin Xiaoyi for several breaths and went past her, stopping on Yiqing Luo. Yin Junfei's eyes narrowed as an icy cold glint shot out. Second Elder Miao was an intelligent person, as he followed Yin Junfei's gaze, as he understood something, as he smiled apologetically. "I believe Madam Envoy has heard of those rumors regarding Misty. Don't put her in your heart. The reason why she can sit there is only because her relationship with Master Gui Wu is better." Yin Junfei's gaze turned chillier by the minute. When Sun Yutong, who was beside him, saw this, she revealed a disdainful smile. She glanced at the seats on the right and said, "I say, Second Elder Miao, the rules of your Miao tribe are really laughable." Mei also chimed in from the side. Viciousness faintly surfaced on her beautiful face. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can rely on their connections to sit in the first row. Now, they even arranged our big sister Yin to sit next to them. Second Elder Miao feels that Big Sister Yan's status is equal to those pieces of trash. When he spat out the last 4 words, Plum released her aura without anyone noticing. Second Elder Miao broke out in a cold sweat. Fourth Elder Miao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and spoke with some hesitation. "The Great Messenger has a distinguished status. It is the Miao tribe's honor to be able to participate in the most important sacred maiden selection ceremony of the Miao tribe. How can those few students compare to you?" Fourth Elder Miao first praised him before continuing, "But Grandmaster Gui Wu, he is, after all, the most respected Grandmaster in the Nirvana realm. He is also a prophecy expert who could determine a profound practitioner's life. In this way, the Miao tribe feels that our big sister Yin can't be compared to that Grandmaster Gui Wu. You value the so-called Grandmaster Gui Wu more?" Mei directly interrupted Fourth Elder Miao's words, as her voice was chilly. Fourth Elder Miao's face immediately turned pale as he hurriedly cupped his hands in apology. No, I absolutely don't mean it in this way, but... Chapter 2738. Then, Second Elder Miao moved closer to Yin Junfei and smiled flatteringly. "This brother of mine is stupid. Lord Envoy, please be magnanimous and don't bother with him." Pausing for a moment, he looked at the seats on the right and asked in a low voice, "We are stupid. According to Sir Messenger, what should we do?" Yin Junfei maintained her unfathomable posture and raised her head high. It was as if even speaking to the elders of the Miao tribe was beneath her status. Second Elder Miao's expression was slightly awkward. However, he still had to maintain the smile on his face. Sun Yutong received Yin Junfei's gaze and said arrogantly, "No wonder your Miao tribe is still a small faction even after hundreds of years." Was there a need to ask Sister Yin such a simple question? I'll be frank. These people, since they don't have the qualifications to sit on this seat, just chase them away. Second Elder Meow's face darkened. His white brows furrowed as he stared at the seats on the right for a moment. Yin Zhenfei's careless voice drifted into his ears. What? Does Second Elder Meow think that little sister son's request is too much? Second Elder Meow felt a chill run down his spine, and he immediately straightened his back. He hurriedly shook his head with a smile. It's not too much. Miss Sun is right. Those who don't have the qualifications indeed don't deserve to sit in the first row. This is against the rules. After saying that, he glanced at Fourth Elder Meow, warning him to speak less and act cautiously. Following that, he cupped his hands in greeting towards Yin Zhenfei and headed towards the first row, towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo and the others naturally noticed the extravagance on this side, seeing that Yin Zhenfei had not taken her seat for a long time. Many people looked at them from time to time. How could they not understand? Yin Zhenfei was putting on a show, wanting to cause trouble. As expected, not long after, they saw Second Elder Meow walking toward them with a gloomy expression. Second Elder Meow paused for a moment by Gue Wu's side. After that, he carefully sized up Gue Wu's expression. Gue Wu did not even raise his eyelids, and only held a cup of wine, minding his own business and drinking. His expressionless face made it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Second Elder Meow asked himself if he could climb to the position of Elder Meow. Naturally, he had his own way of judging people. However, when he looked at Gue Wu, not only could he not see anything, on the contrary, he was suppressed by the aura of the ghost martial artist to the point that he broke out in cold sweat and his legs went weak. Clearly, Gue Wu had not even taken a glance at him. Second Elder Meow decisively dispelled the idea of discussing with Gue Wu as he braced himself and walked towards Yiqing Luo. You, and you. Second Elder Meow pointed towards the direction of Yiqing Luo and the rest. In a row, other than Gue Wu and Zhou Mo, the rest were all pointed out. He waved his hand, and his white robe fluttered in the wind. All of you, sit at the back. After saying those words, Second Elder Meow immediately looked towards Gue Wu. Gue Wu was still minding his own business, drinking wine. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Gue Wu did not care about the life and death of these people. From the looks of it, it should be this group of students who were shamelessly trying to intimidate Gue Wu. Master Gue Wu couldn't be bothered to bicker with them, and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. Therefore, he didn't say anything to explain that he wasn't familiar with these students at all. That's right. It must be so. Otherwise, why would this group of people sit together with Gue Wu and the rest? Chapter 2739. Thinking in this way, Second Elder Meow wasn't worried that because he chased these students away, he would offend Ghost Martial Artist. He felt even more confident now. He put on a straight face. You bunch of students, do you know the rules or not? Is this a place where you can sit? He raised his head and looked at the seats at the back as he casually pointed to the last few rows. All of you sit over there. However, after he said that, the people on the seats only shot him a faint glance. Following that, they shifted their gazes away, continuing the conversation earlier. No one bothered about Second Elder Meow's words. This was simply a blatant slap on Second Elder Meow's face. Second Elder Meow's expression instantly sunk as he fiercely slammed his palm onto the table. This elder will not haggle with you on account of your young age and lack of upbringing. Now, scram over there for this elder, otherwise, don't blame this elder for not showing any mercy. Second Elder Meow's slap was extremely forceful. On the long table in front of Yiqing Luo and the others, those delicacies, bowls, and chopsticks, all gave off a clashing sound from the vibrations. This commotion, it also made the guests who had just entered their seats to look over curiously. The entire Meow Clan's public square was in silence. Everyone's gazes all gathered towards the direction of the first row. The people who were seated on the first row still hadn't moved, until Second Elder Meow's remaining power had dissipated. Yiqing Luo and the others didn't even bother to take a look at Second Elder Meow. Second Elder Meow's eyes were hazy as anger surged up and just as he was about to slam the table and scold angrily, suddenly he saw that red-robed young lady, raising a fair, slender wrist, displaying a shut-up gesture. Inexplicably, Second Elder Meow's words were instantly stuck in his throat. The young lady was still leaning lazily in that half-masked man's arms, as her brows were filled with ridicule and ridicule. Upbringing? With Second Elder Meow's current quality, are you even fit to talk about upbringing with me? The young lady's voice was melodious, extremely pleasing to the ear, like pearls falling onto a plate into one's heart. Elder Meow, widened her eyes, and her face turned ashen. What did you say? I didn't expect that Second Elder Meow is not only of low quality, even his ears are not that good. Yiqing Luo lazily propped up her waist against Mo Xian's tall frame. His every move was filled with a lazy aura. Compared to family education, I feel that us students are much more noble than you. She smiled sweetly. At least we will not do such a disrespectful action and say such disrespectful words at such a sacred moment to the Meow tribe. He was mocked by a junior in front of so many guests. If Second Elder Meow didn't act up, in the future, he would probably be called a paper tiger. Second Elder Meow's entire body instantly emitted a terrifying aura as her pair of sinister eyes stared angrily at Yiqing Luo as she clenched her teeth. What a sharp tongue blast. You also know that this is the Meow tribe. How dare you disregard the rules in this elder's territory? My Meow Stockade village will not tolerate you lot. Saying that, he howled furiously. Men, chase these people who are disrupting the Meow tribe's sacred maiden selection out of the Meow tribe. Very quickly, a large group of guards swarmed up. No one around them spoke up to plead for him. Everyone could see that. Second Elder Meow's actions were instigated by the secluded palace. Who was willing to offend the secluded palace for this bunch of Heavenly Academy students? Chapter 2740. Naturally, everyone had the attitude of watching a good show. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Taking a look at the guards who surrounded her, her lips curled into a cold smile. This is how Second Elder Meow treats guests. This elder doesn't think that anyone who disrupts our Meow tribe's sacred maiden selection ceremony is a guest. You address yourself as a guest, but you don't have any manners. So why should this elder treat you with respect? Second Elder Meow gave a cold laugh as his brows turned cold. Do it. The guards received the order and pounced towards Yiqing Luo and the others. Mo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo's slender waist tightly as his figure retreated backwards. Like a ghost, he broke away from the guards' encirclement. Yiqing Luo's gaze went past the crowd and landed on the middle of the first row on Yin Zhenfei, whose brows were raised with a smile in her eyes. As though sensing Yiqing Luo's gaze, Yin Zhenfei shifted her gaze. Coincidentally, it met Yiqing Luo's eyes. She was extremely complacent, as though she was ridiculing Yiqing Luo. Fight with me? Are you qualified? Yiqing Luo wasn't angry. Instead, her charming eyes curved as her pink lips moved slightly, spitting out two words soundlessly, scum scum. Successfully, it made Yin Zhenfei's face turn black. Yiqing Luo's mood was joyous as she leisurely shifted her gaze away, looking towards Yin Xiao, Yi, and the others who were surrounded by the guards. Yiqing Luo pinched Mo Xian's hand. Originally, she didn't want to create trouble at Yi's sacred maiden ceremony. But trouble came knocking on her door. She could only take action. She was preparing to bring Mo Xian along to take action directly, using violence to curb violence. Suddenly, a clear and dignified voice shouted angrily, "Stop!" This angry shout, it was extremely dignified. It made those guards subconsciously stop what they were doing. Everyone's gazes turned over. They saw a lady dressed in blue Meow tribe clothing, walking over slowly. The Meow tribe accessories on her gave off a jingle sound as she walked. Second Elder Meow's gaze, when it met the lady, his expression turned extremely ugly. "Meow Yi, what are you doing out here?" The woman was Meow Yi. There was a cold smile in Meow Yi's eyes. Her clearly young face was strangely mature and stern. Second Elder Meow wants to chase away the guest that I invited. If I don't come, who knows what Second Elder Meow will do to my guest? She walked Tien, Xiao, Yi, and the rest. Her petite body stood in front of them. His gaze swept across the surrounding guards bit by bit. Go down. Her voice was calm, but it was filled with authority. The guards immediately looked at Second Elder Meow. These guards knew about Meow Yi's status in the Meow tribe. If it was before, the guards did not care about Meow Yi at all. But now, the Meow tribe leader and young Lady Meow had done such a shameful thing to the Meow tribe. In the entire Meow tribe, Meow Yi was the only direct descendant of the Meow tribe. Moreover, Meow Yi had participated in the Meow tribe's Holy Maiden selection and was one of the candidates. They naturally did not dare to be rude to Meow Yi. Otherwise, it would be disrespectful to the Holy Maiden and the ancient goo worm. But Second Elder Meow was the elder of the Meow tribe. He was below 1 and above 10,000. Both sides were people that their guards could not afford to offend. For a moment, the guards did not know who they should listen to. Second Elder Meow was obviously aware of this point. Chapter 2741. Second Elder Meow's face darkened as he warned in a low voice. Meow Yi, you are not a descendant recognized by the Meow family. You were allowed to participate in the Holy Maiden selection only because you have the direct bloodline of the Meow tribe leader. If you cannot pass the Holy Maiden selection, do you know the consequences? I'm not a descendant recognized by the Meow family. Then, that Meow Rongrong who had an illicit affair with her father, is she a descendant recognized by the Meow family? Meow Yi laughed coldly as she retorted rudely. Second Elder Meow's expression turned extremely ugly as he scolded her sternly. Meow Yi, what nonsense are you spouting? Second Elder Meow, you know very well whether I am spouting nonsense or not. Meow Yi smiled nonchalantly. Second Elder Meow did not expect this. This little girl who usually looked so obedient and harmless. How could she become so sharp-tongued? Could it be that her usual obedience was just an illusion? That her usual obedience was just an illusion? And now was this her true face? This thought sent chills down Second Elder Meow's spine. If it was really as he had guessed, then this Meow Yi was definitely not a good person. His white brows furrowed, as if something was strangling his heart. He was about to speak when Meow Yi continued with a smile. Second Elder Meow, allow me to remind you that from the day Meow Yixiong and Meow Rongrong did that illicit affair and humiliated the Meow tribe, they were no longer part of the Meow tribe. And I, Meow Yi, am the true eldest miss of the Meow tribe. Every word was forceful and sonorous. It was as if she was swearing something. Second Elder Meow's face alternated between green and white. His ruthless eyes stared straight at Meow Yi, as if he wanted to see through this girl's soul. Meow Yi let him look at her. The corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. She was still so confident and in high spirits. Second Elder Meow, these are the guests that I invited. I want them to sit here. Do you have any objections? Second Elder Meow stepped back, his gaze darting towards Yen Zhenfei. Meow Yi, eldest miss, this is not the time for you to be willful. He knew that what Meow Yi said was the truth. Meow Yi was indeed the direct bloodline of the Meow tribe leader. Even if Meow Rongrong was still here, Meow Yi was the real young mistress of the Meow clan. He softened his tone and discussed. Eldest miss, over there, is the emissary of the Palace of Darkness. You also know that the Palace of Darkness now represents the entire Nirvana realm. If we offend the emissary of the Palace of Darkness, the Meowgoo family will be in trouble. Meow Yi scoffed at Second Elder Meow's explanation. Second Elder Meow patiently looked at Yi Qing Luo. Miss Yi, your eldest young miss friend, so you should consider for her sake. It's just a messenger from the Palace of Darkness. Yet Second Elder Meow is so humble. Those who don't know would think that your Meow tribe has fallen to the point where you have to curry favor with everyone you see. Yi Qing Luo's fingers twirled a lock of hair as she gave a low laugh. She did not hide her disdain for Second Elder Meow at all. You, Second Elder Meow glared furiously. Don't you dare insult the Meow Goo clan. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. As for this second Elder Meow, she didn't know how to evaluate it. Chapter 2742. For the Meow Goo family. He, the dignified Elder Meow, was willing to lower his head. But, in order to curry favor with others, he treated the invited guests rudely. Yiqing Luo despised this kind of behavior. She leaned her little head on Mo Xin's arm and yawned lazily. She then continued, Second Elder Meow, if Miss Yin wishes to sit in our row, then let her come over to discuss it herself. Otherwise, there's no need for discussion. After saying that, she raised her hand and casually swept it. A surge of invisible, profound energy instantly dispersed. In the air, a wave of air rolled down like the waves of the sea. Those guards who were standing there in a daze opened up a path. Yiqing Luo and the rest returned to their original seats. The delicacies, bowls, and chopsticks on the long table were all neatly returned to their original positions. This scene caused countless people in the surroundings to be dumbfounded, especially second Elder Meow, who was the nearest. At the moment when Yiqing Luo made her move, her footsteps seemed to be floating as she retreated a few steps back. This power. It was too shocking. This was the infamous Yi Luo of the Northern Wave Continent. His power was actually so powerful. Earth Profound 9th grade. Gui Wu, who was sitting by the side, put down his wine cup. He raised his eyes expressionlessly, calmly without any fluctuations. The moment she released her profound chi, her profound grade was Earth Profound 9th grade, about to step into Sky Profound realm. Earth Profound 9th grade. She. The Overlord's abandoned wife is an Earth Profound 9th grade cultivator, and very likely, possibly, about to step into Sky Profound realm. This sentence seemed to have stirred up 1,000 waves, caused countless people to refute in disbelief. Earth Profound 9th grade? How old was Yi Luo? He looked at most 14 or 15 years old. A 14 or 15-year-old Earth Profound 9th grade cultivator. And to step into Sky Profound realm. Even the Overlord couldn't do it. Was Master Gui Wu speaking up for Yi Luo? Does Wu look like someone who would joke? Zhou Mo hooked his arm around Gui Wu's shoulder as a bewitching smile appeared on his face. Using his profound energy, he said, My family's Wu is someone you guys call the Grandmaster of the Golden Prophecy. Do you guys not believe his words? The astonishment in everyone's eyes deepened. They indeed couldn't believe it, and were even more unwilling to believe it. However, young Master Mo was right. Master Gui Wu wasn't someone who would joke around. Master Gui Wu's golden prophecy had never been off the mark. How could the ghost martial grandmaster casually talk about Yi Luo's profound rank? Furthermore, earlier when Yiqing Luo casually waved her sleeves, it was the method that took away dozens of Meow tribe guards. No matter how one looked at it, it was absolutely not something that an ordinary profound practitioner could accomplish. Those people who were discussing about Yiqing Luo being an abandoned woman, etc. At this moment, all of them shut their mouths. The entire square was deathly silent. Yiqing Luo expressed that in this era where the strong were revered, there was nothing more effective than showing off one's strength and using violence to curb violence. Coupled with Gui Wu's testimony, those people, no matter how much they hated her, had no choice but to obediently tuck their tails between their legs. Yiqing Luo's move. Second Elder Meow was also stunned. Earth Profound 9th grade cultivators were terrifying. At 14 or 15 years old, their profound rank had already reached Earth Profound 9th grade. Those who were about to step into Sky Profound realm were even more terrifying. If Yi Luo was allowed to continue growing like this, in the future, wouldn't it mean that he would really surpass the Overlord? Second Elder Meow cautiously turned his eyes sideways as he looked towards Yin Zhenfei's direction. Chapter 2743. At this moment, a coquettish laughter came from the side. Second Elder Meow's position in the Meow tribe is just so. Even a little junior can order you around. Then, a coquettish figure walked over. She had a curvaceous figure and a waist as slender as a willow snake. That young and tender face was extremely beautiful, and her eyes were full of seductive charm. It seems that our Lord Messenger has overestimated Second Elder Meow. Second Elder Meow's body stiffened. He looked at that woman with an ugly expression. Miss May, this is the eldest miss of the Meow tribe, a candidate for the Holy Maiden. If she can become the Holy Maiden, her position will naturally be higher than mine. May raised her eyebrows and smiled so seductively that everyone's eyes were glued to her. But now, she is not the Holy Maiden, is she? As soon as May finished speaking, Meow-E's gaze fell on May. Meow-E's lips curled into a distant but polite smile. Even if I am not the Holy Maiden of the Meow tribe now, I am still much nobler than a dog like you. After all, I am the eldest miss of the Meow tribe. You. May was enraged by Meow-E's rebuke. You dare to scold me. She raised her hand and slapped Meow-E's face. May was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Meow-E did not even have time to react. He could only feel a sharp gust of cold wind falling on his face. Ha! A crisp sound of slap. Everyone could only see an afterimage flying backward at high speed. Soon after, it heavily smashed into a drum on a high platform not far away. Rumble. The wooden high platform and drum shattered with a loud bang. Dust and smoke billowed everywhere. Wood splinters flew everywhere. That figure fell on the broken wood, crying out in pain. Around them, sounds of people sucking in cold breaths sounded out. Good hit. A little bitch like her, who doesn't have any ability but still wants to use her status to speak rudely, deserves to be hit. Sun Yutong, Yin Junfei, and the other guards of the Palace of Darkness also walked over. As soon as Sun Yutong's voice fell, he then heard the sweet laughter of a young girl. Miss Sun is right. He does deserve to be beaten. This voice, Sun Yutong's expression froze. His eyes quickly looked in the direction of the laughter. After the profound chi dispersed, a young girl dressed in red looked at her with a light smile. And standing behind that girl was none other than Meow-E, who had been slapped by Plum just now. No, wasn't Meow-E sent flying by May's slap? What about May? After the crowd saw Meow-E behind Yiqing Luo, he suddenly seemed to understand something. One by one, they quickly turned their eyes to the collapsed high platform and the beating of the drums. When the dust settled, the figure lying on the ground was revealed, trembling nonstop. Her thin and elegant dress hung loosely on her body. It revealed a red undergarment embroidered with peonies. Her fair skin had an obvious curve to it, big and soft, together with the beauty of the peony. It makes one's blood swell. The eyes of many men in the crowd almost emitted the light of wolves. The ladies' attention naturally wouldn't be on these. They clearly saw that on May's delicate and beautiful face, there was a bright red palm print, which was obvious. Yiqing Luo raised her hand lazily. Her slender fingers gently stroked her palm. Chapter 2744. How could you? Sun Yutong was startled. Thinking back to what she had just said, her face turned deathly pale. She hurriedly looked in May's direction and eagerly tried to explain. Sister May, I'm not talking about you. It's her. What's the point of explaining all that to her? Yin Junfei tugged on Sun Yutong's arm in exasperation. Being humiliated like this in front of so many people, you've really thrown this envoy's face away. Saying that, she didn't even bother to take a look at Plum as she walked towards Yiqing Luo directly. Yin Junfei's steps were slow. In everyone's eyes, it felt like every step Yin Junfei took was like an invisible mountain pressing down on her. It was so heavy that they couldn't breathe. The surrounding guests' reverence towards Yin Junfei and the Palace of Gloomy Darkness instantly surged, as expected of the emissary of the Abyss Palace. His aura was so oppressive. However, on Yiqing Luo's face, there wasn't a single ripple of emotions. Her eyes were calm, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. Yin Junfei stopped in front of Yiqing Luo. Under the veil, the pair of eyes seemed as though they were dipped in poison as they stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, under my eyes, you dare to hit my people. Don't tell me. Don't put my palace of darkness in your eyes. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. Sure enough, it was as she had guessed. Yin Jinfei had no real power in Gloomy Palace. She had to have a legitimate reason to make a move. A reason related to the Palace of Darkness. Otherwise, if Yin Jinfei casually made a move on her, she would definitely die. The Palace of Darkness probably wouldn't stand up for him. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she scoffed. Secluded palace? She chuckled and murmured those 3 words. Soon after, she raised her charming eyes, her face still hung with her evil smile. That's right. I really don't care about the Palace of Darkness. And I don't care about you, the so-called messenger of the Palace of Darkness. Her voice was soft. Her tone was also very gentle. It did not have any extra emotions. However, the crowd could feel that it was a feeling of extreme disdain. Yin Jinfei's eyes instantly turned black. She gritted her teeth and said, Yi Luo, do you still think that you have His Majesty to back you up? Let me tell you, in less than half a month, the secluded Darkness Palace will become the #1 palace in the Nirvana realm. When Dizun was mentioned, Yin Jinfei's eyes flashed. Her vision went past Yiqing Luo and fell onto the tall and handsome man behind Yiqing Luo, who looked like a deity. The man was wearing a mask that covered half of his face. But in terms of his aura, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Even though the man was just standing there, he exuded an aura of a monarch descending from the heavens. Compared to the people he met in the Abyss Palace, he was much stronger. This person looked even more mesmerizing. Such an outstanding man. How could I become the subject of that slut Yi Luo? Yin Jinfei suppressed the jealousy in her eyes and continued maliciously. Oh, right. I forgot that you still have the Castle Master of Death God Castle as your backing. Yin Jinfei deliberately raised her voice. So much so that the guests who were standing nearer to them all heard what Yin Jinfei said. Immediately, it exploded into an uproar. Death God Castle Master? Zhu Wuxian? That unapproachable, mysterious, and unfathomable Zhu Wuxian? That iceberg-like man was Yi Luo's backing? Chapter 2745, which meant to say, Yi Luo not only seduced the Overlord, he also hooked up with this mysterious nobleman, and even offended Death God Castle's Castle Lord. Every single one of them were characters who could shake the entire Nirvana realm if they stood out. All of them had been hooked up by Yi Luo. This Yi Luo, what ability did he have? To be able to attract so many noble and outstanding men? Everyone's gazes towards Yiqing Luo were filled with shock and disdain. Yin Jinfei gave a satisfied cold smile. After her face was covered by the veil, only her 2 eyes were revealed, and the emotions it revealed were especially obvious. Yin Jinfei's gaze fell onto Dmo Xian. That young master, you probably don't know what kind of person the lady in front of you is? Before you, she had climbed onto the Overlord's bed. Moreover, to be able to make Death God Castle's Castle Lord personally say she's mine, now, she's so intimate with you. She paused as her beautiful eyes curved and her voice revealed a trace of bewitchment. She got close to you, just to cling onto your power. Don't be used by her. Yin Jinfei's words made the surrounding guests even more heated discussions, especially those ladies who were jealous of Yi Luo for having 3 outstanding men. The words that came out of their mouths were simply unbearable to listen to. All of them were fanning the flames, just to infuriate the new sugar daddy that Yi Luo had hooked up with. Then to see Yi Luo being abandoned by the sugar daddy in front of everyone. But the crowd's discussions and Yin Jinfei's intentional bewitchment words didn't make the main character in their mouths change her expression at all. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her smile was very shallow, not reaching her eyes. Following that, her pink lips moved slightly as she spat out a few words, Yin. Before she could finish her words, Yin Jinfei's complacent smile instantly dissipated as her expression turned sinister. Shut up. You shut up for this envoy. The clamorous discussions stopped abruptly. No one understood why the envoy from Gloomy Palace suddenly flew into a rage. Yin Jinfei's chest was heaving up and down. Apparently, she was extremely angry. Yiqing Luo gave a melodious chuckle. Miss Yin's secluded darkness palace has been manipulating public opinion recently, creating numerous rumors about me, splashing dirty water on me. Now, he even did not hesitate to smear my name at the Miao tribe's Saintess selection ceremony. I'm kind-hearted and don't intend to bicker with you. However, my character is that I can't tolerate anyone bullying the people I care about. There was a hint of laughter in her voice. His tone was also light and indifferent, without the slightest fluctuation. This is my fiancé. Miss Yin is smearing my feelings for my fiancé. This really makes me very curious about Miss Yin's goal. Yiqing Luo paused for a moment as the corners of her eyes rose into a narrow arc. Could it be that Miss Yin has taken a fancy to my fiancé and is trying to sow discord between me and my fiancé, so as to take the opportunity to rise up? Yin Junfei's hands under her sleeves clenched into fists. The surrounding guests were once again in an uproar because of Yiqing Luo's words. What did Yi Luo mean? Her dark deeds were intentionally led by secluded darkness palace? A person's heart was easily swayed by different opinions. At this moment, Yi Luo's words made them start to guess if Yi Luo's words were true or not. Sun Yutong saw the situation going out of control once again as she anxiously looked towards Yin Jinfei. Chapter 2746. Sun Yutong was anxious as she clenched her teeth. Yi Luo, what you said is ridiculous. Would the Palace of Darkness target you to manipulate the rumors and public opinion? Who do you think you are? Immediately following that, she quickly continued. Furthermore, why are there so many rumors surrounding you? Isn't it because there's a problem with your character? It's a fact that you've been abandoned by the Overlord. It's also a fact that you've brought your so-called fiancé here to show off. You've just been abandoned by the Overlord for a short period of time, and you've already found your next family, even calling him fiancé. If this isn't fickle, then what is? Sun Yutong's words made the surrounding guests nod their heads in agreement. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a faint cold arc, as though she was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her brows were filled with a deathly stillness. That's right, I'm also very curious. Why would the Palace of Darkness, which sounds like it's going to boast to the heavens, purposely target a weak lady like me, using such a despicable method? Yiqing Luo touched her chin in puzzlement as she raised her eyes to look at Yin Junfei. Miss Yin, what do you think? That word, Yin, had just left her mouth. Yin Junfei's body suddenly stiffened. After Yiqing Luo's words ended, Yin Junfei's face under the veil was covered in a haze. Damn slut, Yi Luo thought that she had caught hold of her weakness, so she could throw her weight around in front of her, and even tried to use this secret to threaten her. She would absolutely not give Yi Luo a chance to reveal the secret. The intense murderous intent disappeared in a flash. Yin Junfei's brows had already regained her arrogance. Before today, I don't even know you. The Palace of Darkness will absolutely not do such a disgraceful thing. Yiqing Luo burst out laughing when she heard that. Then, Miss Yin, can you be sure that the people around you won't make use of the Palace of Darkness to manipulate the public opinion? As she was laughing, her gaze fell on Mei, who was standing up in a sorry state, frantically tidying herself up. Yin Junfei's gaze also looked over. Instantly, her face turned slightly pale. Her tightly clenched fingers uncontrollably tightened. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. After all, it's not the first time that Miss Yin has been treated as a puppet, isn't it? Yin Junfei trembled with anger. Their conversation wasn't soft at all. The surrounding guests saw that Yin Junfei didn't refute Yiqing Luo's guess. All of them couldn't help but look at Mei. They were not fools. Even if it was easy to waver, it wasn't without reason. After all, Yiqing Luo had been abandoned by the Overlord. The news spread like wildfire in the Northern Waves continent for almost a month. If it wasn't for someone deliberately guiding him from the back, this matter would definitely not be a hot topic until now. Today, Yin Junfei's tacit agreement had verified Yi Qing Luo's words. The rumors and public opinion were related to the palace of gloomy darkness. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. As for whether there's any problem with my character, this isn't something for Miss Yin and Miss Sun to worry about. Sun Yutong's face paled a few shades at this moment. After meeting Yi Qing Luo's gaze, instinctively, she hid behind Yin Junfei. Yin Junfei clenched her fists tightly as her face, under the veil, turned green and red. Yi Luo, you're really great. Chapter 2747. Bang! Yi Qing Luo suddenly moved, and her figure was already standing in front of Yin Junfei. She grabbed Yin Junfei's wrist. It was extremely fast. It was so fast that no one could see it clearly. Yi Qing Luo had already pulled Yin Junfei and pressed her behind, onto the flagpole which represented the Miao tribe. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with malice as she lowered her body, as though she would pinch Yin Junfei to death in the next moment. Yin Junfei, you'd better dispel this thought. If you dare to touch them, your good days will come to an end. Yi Qing Luo's voice was very low. Only the two of them could hear it. Yin Junfei was frightened, her lips trembling. She didn't want to admit her fear of Yi Luo, but he couldn't deny it. Just now, Yi Luo's voice sounded like an Azura from the depths of hell. At this moment, Yin Junfei was stunned. In her mind, Yi Qing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face appeared, facing her, revealing a bloodthirsty, cold smile. Yin Junfei's heart trembled. His body could not stop trembling, ever since he became the emissary of the Palace of Darkness. It had been a long time since Yin Junfei had felt so helpless and terrified. She pursed her lips unwillingly as her back leaned against that flagpole, which wasn't considered thick. Being suppressed by Yi Qing Luo, that flagpole was almost embedded into her flesh. It hurt against her back. Do you understand? That enchanting voice drifted into his ears again. Yin Junfei's lips trembled, and she was about to agree. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced around at the countless onlookers. He swallowed the words of begging for mercy that were at the tip of his tongue. Originally, Yin Junfei was thinking of borrowing the power of public opinion, using her identity as the Palace of Darkness's envoy to give Yi Qing Luo a show of strength. At least he could take revenge for the grievances he had suffered in Yi Qing Luo's hands. All the guests here wanted to build a relationship with her Palace of Darkness. As long as she asked, these guests would definitely make Yi Luo and the others feel suffocated. In the end, he retreated in defeat. Everything had clearly been set up. But now, she was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He couldn't just beg for mercy like this. He could not allow himself to be overwhelmed by Yi Luo's aura. She was the emissary of the Palace of Gloom. She represented the image of the gloomy palace. If she retreated, Umbra Palace would become a laughingstock. The Palace of Darkness would definitely not let her off so easily. Thinking of such a harem, Yin Junfei held her breath. No matter how afraid she was of Yi Luo, she couldn't compare to the terror of Gloomy Palace. She suppressed the fear in her heart and tried her best to look calm. Yi Luo, do you care about those people that much? Don't tell me you don't know. That group of people are the dogs raised by the main character, Yi Qing Luo? Night Qing Luo. This name was not unfamiliar to the surrounding guests. After all, it was related to Yi Qing Luo's deeds. The news had already spread throughout the streets and alleys of the Nirvana realm. Everyone was in an uproar. What did this have to do with Yi Qing Luo? Following that, he heard Yin Junfei's ridiculing voice ringing. Have you imitated Yi Qing Luo for too long that you're too immersed in your character? Now, even Yi Qing Luo's dog also wants to learn from Yi Qing Luo, protecting it? Pa! A slap landed on Yin Junfei's face. Yi Qing Luo used brute force as the expression on her face was cold and her eyes were filled with a chilly glint. Only scum like you, who likes to be a dog, will think that everyone you meet is a dog. Chapter 2748. The people she cared about were her reverse scale. She couldn't tolerate anyone saying a bad word about her. Especially, she was comparing her brother to a dog. This slap was thrown with extreme force. Even though Yin Junfei was wearing a veil, it wasn't difficult to tell that her face was already red and swollen. You? How dare you? Sun Yutong's eyes widened in shock when she saw that. Someone actually dared to hit Sister Yin? Sister Yin was the envoy of Abyss Palace. That Yi Luo, wasn't he afraid of Abyss Palace's revenge? How dare I? Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with an evil smile. This is called being presumptuous? You haven't seen anything more presumptuous. Sun Yutong was frightened by her gaze as she retreated a few steps. Just at this moment, not knowing when, Mei had already dashed over and pounced towards Yi Qing Luo with all her might. She didn't care about her messy appearance as her entire body pounced towards Yi Qing Luo, who was dragging Yin Junfei. Following that, Mei turned her head around and shouted sternly at the row of Abyss Palace's guards behind her. What are you all still in a daze for? Seeing your own master being humiliated by a little slut, yet you still don't know how to take action? As she was saying that, Mei used her body to separate the distance between Yin Junfei and Yi Qing Luo. Following that, she exerted strength as both her hands wrapped tightly towards Yi Qing Luo. Yin Junfei took the opportunity to take a step back, retreating out of Yi Qing Luo's attack range. Her body swayed unsteadily. Sun Yutong immediately went up to support her as she asked softly, Sister Yin, are you all right? Yin Junfei grabbed Sun Yutong's arm tightly as she stabilized her body. Her eyes were gloomy as she didn't take a look at Sun Yutong, but stared straight at Yi Qing Luo's direction. Mei's sudden attack was out of Yi Qing Luo's expectations. Yi Qing Luo didn't manage to react in time as she was pounced on by Mei's arms. His entire person was pushed back a few steps. Yi Qing Luo frowned as she raised her hand and locked onto Mei's wrist, trying to pull her away. Mei clenched her teeth tightly as she increased her strength. She continued to shout sternly, Envoy Yin, quick! Order your guards to attack. Yin Junfei was startled. She instinctively looked towards the dozen or so guards wearing black robes with the word "you" embroidered on their chests and sleeves. She pursed her lips and her eyes flickered. She seemed to understand Plum's meaning and became determined. You guys, why don't you go and bring that little bitch who doesn't respect the Palace of Darkness out? The dozen guards shifted their gazes to Yin Junfei in unison. Yin Junfei's face was stiff as she sneered. If Gloomy Palace's reputation is damaged, can you bear the responsibility? The dozen or so guards trembled when they heard this. Following that, he speedily headed towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. A smug sneer flashed across Yin Junfei's eyes. The minute those guards struck, Yi Qing Luo felt the surrounding air forming an extremely strong pressure. Her expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to dodge the incoming pressure, a voice suddenly rang out. His waist was tightly wrapped by Mei's hands. Let go! Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased as she forcefully tried to pry Mei's hands away. Mei's beautiful and charming face had already become distorted. Her voice was hoarse as she couldn't help but laugh coldly. Yi Luo, as long as I capture you, I still have a chance. You absolutely cannot snatch away what belongs to me. Chapter 2749. The matter of Mei making use of Yin Junfei was pointed out clearly by Yi Qing Luo, and also successfully sowed discord between her and Yin Junfei. If Mei still wanted to have a place in front of Yin Junfei, this was indeed Mei's only chance, risking her life, using her own body to save Yin Junfei, and using this to let Yin Junfei issue an order to the Palace of Darkness's guards to establish her own position, as long as the Palace of Darkness's guards made a move. Earlier, Yin Junfei's wretched state would be covered up. Everyone would only remember Palace of Darkness's power and power. She had to admit that this young lady called Mei was rather intelligent. Yi Qing Luo's eyes dimmed as her gaze landed on Mei's open collar, revealing that round bosom. The smile on her lips turned colder by several degrees. Miss Mei, I don't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Her voice was like a demonic charm, making one aghast. May's heart suddenly constricted fiercely, only to hear a kacha sound of bones breaking. May's expression instantly turned ghastly pale. The hands which were on Yi Qing Luo's body drooped down weakly. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo raised her leg as she kicked May's abdomen fiercely. May's body flew towards the direction where the guards came from. Those 10 over guards were swift, and their abilities were unfathomable. Just at the instant when May leapt away, 10 over figures turned into numerous remnant images. Naked eyes were unable to capture them. Those 10 over guards had already appeared around Yi Qing Luo, wrapping Yi Qing Luo within, and that May, who originally flew towards the guards, directly rolled onto the ground. Sister May. Sun Yutong saw May rolling several times on the ground as she cried out involuntarily. She was about to walk towards May's direction, but she thought of something as her footsteps paused slightly as she hesitated. Yin Jun Fei shot a glance at May as her eyes dimmed as an unknown emotion surged. You, go over. Sun Yutong's eyes shone as she speedily jogged towards May. May's internal organs felt a tearing pain from the fall. Large mouthfuls of blood gushed out from her mouth. But her hands were broken by Yi Qing Luo, and the slightest movement would cause a heart-wrenching pain. Sister May. Sun Yutong immediately squatted down beside her and fed the pill in her hand into May's mouth. Plum's eyes were lifeless and unfocused. After a long while, he finally saw Sun Yutong clearly. A glimmer of light gradually appeared in her eyes. His body was also trembling slightly. Her lips moved as she silently spat out a few words. Why, Messenger Yin? Forgive me. Sister May, don't talk. Take a rest first. Sun Yutong carefully supported May's head and said in a low voice, Big Sister Yin allowed me to come and bring you medicine. The light in May's eyes grew brighter. She wanted to laugh, but she couldn't muster up any strength. Little by little, her heart felt at ease. Fortunately, she succeeded. As long as he could stand firmly by Yin Feifei's side, she would definitely be able to climb over Yin Feifei's head with her own abilities. For his own future. In order to take back what belonged to her, she had to stay calm. The Sacred Maiden Grand Ceremony's public square had mysteriously turned into a battlefield. However, the surrounding crowd didn't dare to open their mouths to stop her. Chapter 2750. Second, what should we do? Fourth Elder Meow looked at Elder Meow anxiously. Second Elder Meow's expression was solemn as he shook his head. No one can stop the people from the Palace of Darkness from attacking. Are we just going to let them hit us? Fourth Elder Meow frowned. If they continue to fight, not only will they scare the guests who are rushing over, it will also delay the Saintess election. The Palace of Darkness. Second Elder Meow's gaze fell on the young lady who was surrounded by a dozen guards. We can't stop them. Now, why not take the opportunity to see how powerful the Palace of Darkness is? And he paused, his gaze deepening. That young lady who has already entered the 9th level of the Earth Profound Realm at such a young age, how much potential does she have? Fourth Elder Meow paused, carefully considering Second Elder Meow's words. Suddenly, Fourth Elder Meow felt a weight on his shoulder. A huge palm pressed down heavily. Then he heard a hurried voice from behind him. What do you mean, see the power of the Palace of Darkness? See Luo's potential? She was invited to participate in the Saintess election of the Meow tribe. Now that she is in danger, as the host, this is your attitude? The man's voice was very loud. In this silent and solemn atmosphere, it was extremely clear. Everyone turned their gazes toward Zhang Xian. Even Yin Jun Fei's gaze shifted over. Young Lord Gu, Second Elder Meow, saw the person's face and called out in a low voice. Then he said, Young Lord Gu, it's better if you don't interfere in this matter. This person was Gu Jingyu. His handsome face was filled with anger at this moment. He pressed one hand on Fourth Elder Meow's body and the other on Second Elder Meow's body. If I don't interfere, then are the two elders not going to interfere? Letting our guests be treated like this in our own territory, is this how the Meow tribe treats their guests? Gu Jingyu's voice was filled with anger. You've broadened my horizons. Second Elder Miao's face was ashen. Most of the guests around them had noticed the commotion on their side. Second Elder Miao's face darkened. If they interfered, they would definitely offend the Palace of Darkness. The current Miao tribe was definitely no match for the Palace of Darkness. If he didn't intervene, that also confirmed Gu Jingyu's words. The guests who were invited couldn't even guarantee the safety of the guests in their own territory. The reputation of the Miao tribe would definitely be ruined. Moreover, seeing how much Gu Jingyu cared about Yi Luo, something happened to Yi Luo in the Miao tribe. Gu Jingyu would never let the Miao people off. It was a dilemma. The few elders of the Miao tribe present were all unable to open their mouths to reply. Just then, Yin Zhenfei's arrogant and contemptuous voice rang out unhurriedly. What is the relationship between young sect Master Gu and Miss Yi? Why are you so concerned about Miss Ye's matter? Gu Jingyu's sullen expression immediately froze. Yin Zhenfei caught this, and her smile grew. She deliberately glanced at the tall and slender figure standing beside Yin Xiao, Yi, and the rest. He smiled meaningfully. Young Lord Gu, look, Lady Ye's fiancé, didn't say anything, but why are you so agitated? Chapter 2751. You, what nonsense are you sprouting? Gu Jingyu's face instantly flushed red. His hands instinctively retracted back from the two Miao clan elders. Envoy Yin, I am merely standing on the standpoint of a friend to discuss this matter. But you said it in such a vile manner. What intentions do you have? Gu Jingyu was after all the young sect master of Gufeng's sect. His brain worked extremely fast. The expression on his face gradually revealed a warning and cold expression. Invisibly, a thick aura surged from his surroundings. While his long robe, the wind billows, flapping noisily. This powerful aura made Yin Zhenfei's expression change slightly. All the guards had already surrounded Yi Qing Luo's surroundings. There was no one else protecting her. If Gu Jingyu really made a move on her, Yin Zhenfei pursed her lips tightly and laughed loudly. Whether it's a friend or some other unspeakable relationship, young sect master Gu knows clearly in his heart. But this envoy will give young sect master Gu a piece of advice. Miss Ye's ability to seduce men is not small. The men beside her are not just you. Saying that, she flicked her sleeves and turned towards the direction of Sun Yutong and Mei, who was undergoing treatment, as she walked over. Yin Zhenfei's sentence. It indeed gave one a lot of room for imagination. Furthermore, no matter how Gu Jingyu explained, it would inevitably make others suspicious of his relationship with Yi Luo. Unless Gu Jingyu no longer spoke up for Yi Luo, or even worse, become enemies with Yi Luo. Then there was a possibility to change everyone's thoughts. After all, a man and a woman, how could they be friends? On the other side, Yi Qing Luo was surrounded by those 10 over-secluded palace's guards, trapping her within. Those guards' profound qi was chilly, like an icy, cold, venomous snake, winding around Yi Qing Luo bit by bit. This feeling made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows crease tightly. She knew that this group of secluded palace's guards were not ordinary guards. But at this moment, they had yet to make a move against them. Yi Qing Luo had already deeply felt the strangeness of these people. If it was an ordinary person, how could they possibly emit such chilly, profound qi? Simply, like a dead person, emitting that extremely rotten, dense aura of death. Yi Qing Luo was frightened by this thought of hers. She focused her gaze and carefully sized up the guards around her. However, he did not find anything strange. The guards of the Abyss Palace exchanged glances with one another. Without any hesitation, they made their move. More than 10 figures moved almost at the same time. Everyone could only see countless afterimages flitting through the air. As for the red figure that was surrounded, it was instantly engulfed. There was no longer any sign of life. The surrounding guests all gasped in astonishment. They had just witnessed Yi Luo's strength. Moreover, Master Ge Wu had personally admitted that he was a 9th grade Earth Profound Realm Profound practitioner. But under the siege of the dozen or so guards of the Palace of Darkness. He couldn't even hold on for a breath of time. One could see how powerful the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was. What a pity for that genius girl. At the instance when Yi-Ching Luo's red figure completely disappeared from everyone's eyes, Gu Jingyu's body suddenly tensed up. His eyes widened as he looked in disbelief at the rolling sand and dust, the ripple-like profound energy, and that swaying in the air, totally unable to see the figure's afterimage. His heart seemed to be suppressed by something, so much that he was unable to breathe. Misty, that bright and beautiful, flamboyant and reckless young lady. Chapter 2752. Gu Jingyu's body stiffened bit by bit. Bit by bit, from a slight tremble, it gradually became bigger and bigger. His heart was empty. His suppressed emotions made his nose feel a little sour. Boundless anger surged from his chest. At this moment, his mind was completely blank. His mind was filled with Yi Luo's smile and frown. Obviously, they had only met a few times. Why did he have such deep feelings for her? So deep that even he himself couldn't believe it. It was as though his thoughts were controlling his body. Gu Jingyu strode towards Mo Xian's direction. He grabbed Mo Xian's sleeve, baring his teeth and glaring at him. His entire face was contorted in anger. His eyes were red and the gentleness was long gone. Aren't you Yi Luo's fiancé? Why didn't you save her? Why didn't you stop him? Gu Jingyu's sudden action made the surrounding guests believe in Yin Zhenfei's words. Yin Xiaoyi heard the surrounding guest discussion. She frowned and was about to step forward to stop Gu Jingyu. The tall and slender man gently flicked the sleeve of his robe that was being pulled. In an instant, an invisible pressure came pouring down. The air around him seemed to be rioting at this moment. Gu Jingyu's hand had just touched Mo Xian, but it was pushed away by this invisible wave. Gu Jingyu staggered for a while and almost fell to the ground. He didn't hurry to steady himself, but continued to stare at Mo Xian with bloodshot eyes. His voice was hoarse. You're not fit to be Yi Luo's fiancé. If it's me, I won't bear to let her suffer any harm. Young Sect Master Gu. Yin Xiaoyi's face turned pale when she heard Gu Jingyu's words. She quickly berated him sternly. Young Sect Master Gu, please conduct yourself with dignity. Luo and Young Sect Master Gu are not related at all. Don't tell me you're trying to take the opportunity to ruin Luo's reputation by saying such misleading words. Gu Jingyu's eyes lit up for a moment. He stared blankly for a moment and lowered his eyes as he spoke in a hoarse voice. I'm just feeling indignant for Yi Luo. The square was deathly silent. The guests even stopped talking. What if Young Sect Master Gu and Miss Yi didn't have an affair? They wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell. Young Sect Master Gu's feelings for Miss Yi were very deep. Looks like Emissary Yin was right. Yi Luo was a promiscuous woman who could sleep with any man. Every outstanding man wanted to get close to her and become her backer. The reactions of the guests and the red figure that disappeared among the guards of the Palace of Darkness. This caused a smile on Yin Zhenfei's face to deepen. Although she was smiling, her eyes were terrifyingly sinister. He could almost see her distorted facial features under the veil. Damn little slut. A counterfeit dared to strut around in front of her, the emissary of the Palace of Darkness. And he even tried to threaten her with her weakness? Now, she wanted to see if that fake still had any life left to threaten her. Everyone in the world who knew her identity deserved to die. All of them must die. Now a fake had died. Next was Yin Xiaoyi, her dear sister. Yin Zhenfei had already constructed a beautiful picture of the future in her mind. Just when everyone thought that the dust had settled, a voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. Suddenly, a deep, low, and hoarse voice rang out clearly in this silent atmosphere. Chapter 2753. Almost instinctively, the crowd looked in the direction of the voice respectfully. The man wearing half a mask with a pair of black inky eyes was deep and cold, without a single ripple. Just a gaze. It stunned the entire crowd. This was the aura of a real, strong man. Compared to the pretentious aura of the secluded palace, it made people submit from the bottom of their hearts. This man, who was he? Countless people's hearts raised this doubt. Yin Junfei, on the other side, also had her eyes glued on Dmo Xian. In her eyes, there was an unconcealable yearning. Such a noble and powerful man. Only he could be worthy of her. This man was hers. Was hers. It could be said that all the ladies present had the same thought in their minds. They wanted to take him for themselves. But they also felt that he was sacred and noble, unattainable. At this moment, the man wearing half a mask opened his mouth again. His voice was bone-chilling. If Lil Luo can't defeat those people, I will naturally take action. His gaze slowly fell on Gu Jingyu. The icy cold, like December's frost, covered Gu Jingyu's body. Dmo Xian continued. In this world, no one can hurt Lil Luo, not even myself can't. His words ended. Both eyes had already returned to the place where they were surrounded by those 10 overguards. Just for a moment, the man's icy cold gaze was like the blooming of spring flowers. The smooth lines of his clean chin also at this moment softened. Such a huge contrast made everyone's reverence towards Dmo Xian intensified. And when Gu Jingyu, Yin Junfei, and the rest heard Dmo Xian's first sentence, their expressions were different. Gu Jingyu was stunned at first. His face, which was filled with anger, gradually calmed down. He stared blankly at the direction Dmo Xian was looking at. This man's meaning was, he didn't make a move. Because Yi Luo was fine? Yi Luo, fine. Yin Junfei's face also darkened. After realizing Dmo Xian's words, she suddenly reacted to something. She immediately shouted sternly, "Come back, you bunch of trash. Come and protect this messenger." Hee. A light and melodious laughter rang in Yin Junfei's ears. It was a smile that seemed to have come from hell. Yin Junfei's body froze. It's too late. That laughter was softly spitting out words. The next moment, Yin Junfei felt a cold and soft finger around her neck. His nails were as sharp as blades. It was as if it could easily cut through her skin. It was the girl in red who had been surrounded and attacked by more than 10 guards of the Palace of Darkness and had been engulfed. When did she rush in front of Emissary Yin? What incredible speed! To be able to escape from such a tight encirclement and even subdue the emissary of the Palace of Darkness. The crowd had once again refreshed their view of Yiqing Luo's ability. When did you? Yin Junfei's throat was clutched, and it was difficult for her to speak. Yiqing Luo laughed beside her ear just now. There was a faint smile on her face. It was not the smug smile he had after escaping the encirclement of the guards, nor was it the vengeful smile he had when he choked Yin Junfei. Chapter 2754. The dozen or so guard were also stunned at this moment. They turned their heads in unison and looked at Yin Junfei, whose neck was being strangled. There was no expression on their faces, but they didn't continue to attack. They lined up in a row, facing Yiqing Luo's direction. They were like a dozen puppets, waiting for the final order. Yin Junfei was so frightened by Yiqing Luo that her entire body was trembling. A suffocating pain came from her neck, causing her to be filled with the desire to live. Save me. Save me. 10 overguards stood at their original spots. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her gaze swept past those expressionless faces in front of her. A guess in the bottom of her heart slowly formed. She pursed her lips and moved her fingers slightly on Yin Junfei's neck. Following that, her lips curled as a bloodthirsty smile appeared in her eyes. She lowered her head and leaned close to Yin Junfei's ear as she whispered softly, "Looks like, as an envoy, you're a failure. You're spouting rubbish." Yin Junfei retorted with difficulty, "I'm the envoy of the Palace of Darkness. You kill me. If you kill me, they will not let you off." Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she was interested. "Then, why don't we try?" "Just nice." She could try her guess. Yiqing Luo grabbed Yin Junfei's neck as she raised her eyes and smiled at the row of guards in front of her. You people from the Palace of Darkness are merely so. You've been spreading it so mysteriously, even saying that you want to surpass the Imperial Palace. From what I see, you're not even half of the Imperial Palace." There was a hint of laughter in her voice. Following that, she tilted her head and blinked her long eyelashes as she gave an innocent smile. "Originally, on account that we're old acquaintances. Plus today, it's the Meow Tribe's Asanis' selection ceremony. I didn't intend to disgrace you. Such a pity." She intentionally paused for a moment. Her voice was mixed with a treacherous chill. "If you don't do it, you won't die. Since Envoy Yin loves to do it, then I'll fulfill your wish. Let you, in your Palace of Darkness, scram from heaven to hell." Yiqing Luo didn't intentionally control her volume for the first few sentences. He lowered his voice when he said the last sentence. The cold and deep voice was like a deadly lock, seeping into Yin Zhenfei's heart bit by bit. Almost reflexively, Yin Zhenfei screamed out, her face pale. The surrounding guests were in an uproar again. Could it be that Envoy Yin and Yi Luo were old acquaintances? An old acquaintance? Emissary Yin was from the upper realm. In other words, this Yi Luo was also from the upper realm? No wonder he had such a high cultivation at such a young age. Only those godlike people from the upper realm could be so perverted. After knowing that Yi Luo was from the 3 upper realms, everyone's attitude immediately changed. Yi Luo was right. From the beginning to the end, it was Yin Feifei who used the power of the Palace of Darkness to show off and threaten Elder Miao, forcing Yi Luo and the others, who were sitting in the first row, to move to the last row. If not for Yin Feifei's provocation, Yin Feifei would not have been kicked to the bench and ended up in this situation. If he didn't do it, he wouldn't die. The new image was very appropriate. Yi Luo, squatting by the side, the pale-faced Sun Yutong grabbed Mei's robes in fear. Chapter 2755. "All right, it's not impossible to let her go." Yiqing Luo replied straightforwardly as her brows were filled with smiles. She raised her brows, and the long arc at the corner of her eyes made her look rather evil. Sun Yutong was stunned as she didn't expect Yiqing Luo to be so easygoing. What do you want to do?" Yiqing Luo only smiled as she lowered her eyes to look at Yin Zhenfei, who was wearing a veil, but it was unable to conceal her pale face as she asked with a smile, "Does Messenger Yin want to live?" Yes, she naturally wanted to live. Who didn't want to live? She had put in so much effort in order to live on, even to the extent of betraying her everything. How could she possibly not want to live? But Yin Zhenfei was very clear. Yiqing Luo would not let her live. At least, she wouldn't let her live easily, no matter how anxious she was. Yin Zhenfei finally opened her eyes wide as she tried her best to look at her calmly. "Your motive?" Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she looked at the direction of those guards. "Order them to leave the Meow Tribe." Yin Zhenfei's eyes flashed as her body shuddered slightly. She bit her lips tightly. "No." "Oh." Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she smiled. As she smiled, her slender fingers tightened. Yiqing Luo was smiling. Her smile was gentle and her eyes were calm. Totally not like someone who was using her hands to kill someone, but from Yin Zhenfei's struggling strength and that voice which could no longer speak. It had all been verified. Yiqing Luo really wanted to kill Yin Zhenfei. No, no. Sun Yutong instantly panicked. The Misty Palace's messenger was her only reliance now. If Yin Zhenfei died, who would bear the Misty Palace's anger? Yi Luo? No. Yi Luo was not only the person beside her, he was respected and powerful. Yi Luo herself was so powerful that no one could fathom her strength. Misty Palace would definitely take it out on the Sun family. No, Yiqing Luo actually loosened the strength of her fingers. After that, she smiled as she looked at Yin Zhenfei, who had just escaped death, panting miserably. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "What does Messenger Yin think?" she asked with a light smile. Yin Zhenfei finally escaped the suffocating pain. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Yin Zhenfei's body suddenly trembled. He wanted to speak, but he was afraid of the pain he had just experienced. But Yiqing Luo didn't give Yin Jun Fei any time to hesitate. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved. Why? Are you still unwilling to withdraw your guards? She clicked her tongue and glanced at the guards who were standing as straight as a ramrod. Soon after, she shook her head and said, "You are really a good-for-nothing envoy. Even your own subordinates are unwilling to save you. So, even if you leave these guards in the Miao tribe, what's the point?" Yiqing Luo's voice wasn't soft. The guests also pricked up their ears, wishing they could hear the gossip clearly. After hearing Yiqing Luo's words, the guests were in an uproar. Speaking of which, this emissary from the Palace of Darkness seems a little strange. Yes. I feel that the guards of the Palace of Darkness don't care about her life at all. How can a guard ignore his master's life like this? I realized something was wrong a long time ago, but I didn't dare to say it. Didn't you feel it? Right from the start, Messenger Yin couldn't order these guards around. It was until she brought out the reputation of the Palace of Darkness before these guards started to take action. It seemed that only Sun Family's young miss, and that young miss May kept on flattering her. But those guards from the Palace of Darkness totally didn't treat her as their master. Chapter 2756. Listening to the guest discussions. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in satisfaction. She had this idea in her mind. Didn't Yin Jun Fei like to bully others? Didn't she like to use her status as the gloomy palace's emissary to enjoy everyone's flattery? Didn't she like to be the center of attention, to be under one but above all? Then she would shatter Yin Jun Fei's beautiful dream, to let Yin Jun Fei fall from the high and mighty emissary of the upper realm, to become the scum of everyone's ridicule. Now, Yiqing Luo could totally verify her guess. These gloomy palace's guards totally didn't listen to Yin Jun Fei's arrangements. It could also be said that Yin Jun Fei's status in Gloomy Palace, although her name sounded better than these guards, but her actual power wasn't comparable to these guards. This made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but think deeper. Yin Jun Fei originally followed Wolf Saint technique and left West Continent, which meant to say Yin Jun Fei wanted to treat herself as the second Yiqing Qian. After getting close to Wolf Saint technique, dark forces, together with some other forces, built a gloomy palace. Yin Jun Fei was able to become the gloomy palace's emissary, swaggering around Nirvana Realm, recruiting cultivators for Nirvana Realm. It must be Wolf Saint technique's doing. However, Yin Jun Fei's actual power was just an undeserved reputation. Could it be further assumed that dark forces in Gloomy Palace only played a pivotal role? Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards that side of the guards once again as her eyes flickered slightly. These guards had some problems, although, currently, she wasn't sure what was wrong. But she could be sure. These guards were different from ordinary people. If these people were really Gloomy Palace's guards, the power behind this Gloomy Palace was probably hard to deal with. After confirming Yin Jun Fei's status in Gloomy Palace, Yiqing Luo also didn't have the intention to continue teasing Yin Jun Fei. Yin Jun Fei, you should feel lucky. Today is the day my brother Miao Yi takes part in the Sacred Maiden selection, so it's not suitable to see blood. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly as she let go of Yin Jun Fei's neck. Yin Jun Fei's body seemed to have lost all her energy as she fell limply onto the ground. Big Sister Yin, Sun Yutong was just about to go over. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she smiled and blocked her path. What I said is that I won't kill her today, but it doesn't mean that you can bring her away. She didn't want to let the tiger return to the mountain. Although Yin Jun Fei could only be considered a sickly cat at best. But no matter how sick the cat is, when it came to annoying people, it was quite annoying. Last time in the West Continent, letting Yin Jun Fei escape with the Wolf Saint technique was an accident. This time, Yin Jun Fei took the initiative to deliver herself. A cold intent flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes, and following that, she looked towards a certain direction behind her. Xiao Yi, how about I leave this person to you? Yin Xiao Yi, who was called out, suddenly froze. Yin Xiao Yi's gaze landed on the battered woman who was panting heavily on the ground. Her hands gradually clenched into fists. All right, a word was spat out from her mouth with great force. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her vision shifted onto Qiao Jin as she pouted her lips. Qiao Jin understood her meaning as he gently held Yin Xiao Yi's hand and said in a low voice, "I'll bring her over. Later Yi will help you trap her in the Guare." Saying that, Qiao Jin walked towards Yiqing Luo. He was about to bend down and lift up the battered woman on the ground. Suddenly, the hair by the side of his face suddenly floated messily. Chapter 2757. At the same time, a gust of raging wind suddenly rose, sweeping across the place where Qiao Jin was standing earlier. Boom, boom, boom. The deafening sound of the explosion reverberated through the air. A huge pit was formed on the ground. Dust billowed as it filled the surroundings. The ground also gave off a short period of tremors. If Qiao Jin hadn't avoided it earlier, Qiao Jin would definitely be buried in that huge pit by now. The horizon seemed to have been covered with a thick layer of ink in a split second. It was a patch of darkness, making one feel suffocated. The surrounding guests were stunned by the sudden change in the surroundings. What's going on? What's going on? Why did the weather suddenly change? Numerous terrified discussions resounded in the public square. The guests' hearts had an indescribable feeling of uneasiness as it kept on surging. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she raised her eyes to look at the dark sky as her pink lips pursed slightly. She looked at Qiao Jin and asked in a low voice, "Are you hurt?" "No." Qiao Jin shook his head as his expression was grave. "They don't come with good intentions. Be careful." Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. She naturally felt the oppressive feeling from this surge of energy. Indeed, they didn't come with good intentions. Moreover, they were obviously here for her. She sunk her eyes, and between her eyes, there was an obscure glint. Yin Zhen Fei has been brought away. Qiao Jin's gaze swept towards the place where Yin Zhen Fei laid earlier. The dust dispersed. Indeed, Yin Zhen Fei's figure was nowhere to be seen. Even Sun Yutong and Mei, who were not too far away, had also disappeared. The people from Secluded Palace are here. Qiao Jin immediately reacted. Following that, he instinctively turned around and speedily returned to Yin Xiao Yi's side as he hugged her shoulders tightly in a protective posture. Secluded Palace. Yin Xiao Yi's brows creased tightly as she raised her head and looked at the sky full of thick ink. She's really willing to be in cahoots with the devil for power now. "Do you still mind?" Qiao Jin asked in a low voice. "Mind?" Yin Xiao Yi's eyes had a moment of chaos. After some time, her lips twitched as she gave a low laugh. "Don't mind. I've never asked for family, so why would I mind? Only, I find it rather amusing." The Yin family had bet all their treasures on Yin Zhenfei. He was even willing to stand on the side of the dark forces for Yin Zhenfei, abandoning the place he grew up in to help the dark forces invade the Western continent. Now, Yin Zhenfei didn't just abandon the Yin family. He even sold his soul. If the Yin family knew that the Yin family would end up like this, would he still value Yin Zhenfei without any hesitation back then? She chuckled. As she smiled, the expression on her face returned to her usual calmness. All of this had nothing to do with her. The current her only needed Qiao Jin, Yiqing Luo, and the other brothers, and that was enough. Just as the two of them were talking, suddenly, the row of guard from the Palace of Darkness started to move in unison. They quickly stood up straight and straightened their backs. Then they cupped their fists and respectfully knelt down in a certain direction in the sky. "Welcome, Second Palace Master." The guards' voices were loud and clear. The guests were shocked. They dug their ears and looked at the guards kneeling on the ground in disbelief. What do they say? Second Palace Master? The Second Palace Master of the Palace of Darkness. This bunch of guards who disregarded the orders of Yin Zhenfei, the Palace of Darkness envoy, were kneeling down to welcome the Second Palace Master. Chapter 2758. The sky was filled with thick ink as the black fog surged. Gradually, a black sedan descended from the sky. Surrounding the sedan were 4 beautiful ladies who looked the same as those Palace of Darkness guards. The black veil floated, and the figure in the sedan was faintly discernible. Dong! The sedan landed on the ground, and a majestic aura spread out in all directions. It made the atmosphere of the grand ceremony to become extremely solemn and solemn. At this moment, the guests even breathed cautiously. This was the second Palace Lord of Darkness's palace? Everyone was shocked by the second Palace Lord's aura. But Yi-Ching Luo's focus wasn't on the second Palace Lord at all. She squinted her eyes as she looked at those guards who were kneeling on the ground. These guards' actions were a little too neat. Back then, the Godless Island's 3 evils, because they were triplets, their hearts were linked so they were able to move as one. But these guards, even if they had been trained together since young, it was impossible for them to be able to do it perfectly, right? Furthermore, their voices sounded extremely rigid. As compared to Mo Ying's rigid, it was even more stiff. There was an indescribable strange feeling. These guards, it was probably true, and they were hiding some secret. I heard that someone in the Miao tribe bullied our Palace of Darkness's envoy. The lady's cold voice had a special vixen feeling. A fair, jade-like hand lifted up the black veil of the sedan. Following that, an exquisitely dressed lady dressed in the Palace of Darkness's long robe walked out. The lady was wearing a black veil, revealing only that pair of fox-like eyes, which could captivate one's soul. This woman's temperament was filled with the natural charm of a fox, totally not on the same level as May's pretentious, seductive look. The guests present, even if they were ladies, were captivated by the second Palace Lord of Darkness's beauty. The second Palace Lord walked down the sedan, and the beautiful maids behind her went forward to support her. The second Palace Lord's footsteps were elegant and dignified. Her captivating eyes lightly swept past Mei and Yin Junfei, who were lying on the side of the sedan. Who hurt the Palace of Darkness's envoy? Hu Mei's voice sounded softly. It was just like a normal question. However, everyone knew that it was just an illusion. The more soul-stirringly beautiful a woman was, the more dangerous it was, especially when it was a beautiful woman with such a powerful aura and such a noble identity. What was even more dangerous was that it couldn't be touched. Under the immense pressure, everyone turned their gazes towards Yi-Ching Luo in unison. The second Palace Master's enchanting eyes curved into crescents as he followed everyone's gaze and looked over. Their eyes met. The second Palace Master's eyes flickered, and he smiled. "Why did you injure our palace's envoy?" The second Palace Lord's voice was very gentle. It was impossible to tell that he was here to seek justice for his envoy at all. Yi-Ching Luo squinted her eyes as she smiled evilly, legitimate self-defense. The Deputy Palace Master tilted his head and continued to ask with a smile, "So, it was my emissary who made the first move? Is it important who made the first move?" Yi-Ching Luo had no interest in second Palace Lord's smiling tiger mask. The Deputy Palace Master did not get angry. Instead, he nodded in agreement. "Indeed, it's not important." The two of them spoke one after another. The surrounding guests were all dumbfounded. According to the normal development of the plot, shouldn't they take action directly and fight? Chapter 2759. None of the guests had noticed the undercurrent between Yi-Ching Luo and Second Palace Lord. But that didn't mean that DMO Xian and the rest couldn't sense it. Zhou Mo poked his own arm as he trembled while looking at Gue Wu. "Do all women get along like this?" Her face was smiling and her tone was gentle. But every word and sentence was filled with undercurrent. On the other side, Yi-Ching Luo's smile was tainted with a trace of treachery. She tilted her head as the smile in her eyes became more and more evil. "Since it's not important, why did Second Palace Lord ask?" Second Palace Lord seemed to be tired of the confrontation with Yi-Ching Luo as she lowered her eyes and continued laughing. "Young lady, the important thing is, you hurt my envoy. So, what does Second Palace Lord intend to do?" Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows evilly. Second Palace Lord slowly walked towards Yi-Ching Luo as her actions were elegant and noble. You also know that the reputation of the secluded palace cannot be destroyed. You hurt my envoy, and that is challenging the prestige of the secluded palace. If I don't seek justice for the secluded palace's envoy, how would I be able to bear the title of Second Palace Lord? Young lady, do you think what I said is right? I thought that the secluded palace had long lost its reputation. Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to retreat as she looked at Second Palace Lord, who was walking over with a smile. Second Palace Lord brought along an oppressive aura, as though she wanted to envelop Yiqing Luo in her oppressive aura. Yiqing Luo's brows raised slightly as her eyes were calm. After all, your envoy can't even command a guard. Until Yiqing Luo finished her words. Second Palace Lord didn't say a word. She raised her brows in interest as she sized Yiqing Luo up, as though she was surprised about something. This daring young lady was totally unafraid of her oppressive aura. The Second Palace Master's interest was piqued. Her mesmerizing eyes curved even more, and the smile in her voice deepened. Young lady, you're right. That's why I've come all the way here to punish these guards who have no foresight. Second Palace Lord's last word was settled. Faintly, there was a biting, cold, murderous intent. Following that, there was a burst of horrifying air wave. Bam! The Second Palace Master waved his sleeves. The thick, profound energy was as fast as lightning as it charged towards the guards of the Abyss Palace who were kneeling in a row and not moving at all. Dong, dong, dong. Several heavy objects fell to the ground. The dozen or so secluded palace guards didn't even have a chance to scream before they died. They fell to the ground one after another. However, the most frightening thing was not the Second Palace Master's ruthless killing. Instead, it was extremely strange. It was so strange that the guests, who were used to seeing killing, all stood up. Some even screamed. When many women saw this scene, they all leaned towards the men beside them, seeking comfort. On the ground, the guards of the Dark Abyss Palace laid motionlessly. There's a kind of creepy feeling. The dozen guards were originally kneeling in a neat row on the ground. At this moment, they were neatly lined up in a row. One by one, they neatly fell to the ground. Be it the posture or the expression, they were all exactly the same, without the slightest deviation. This was only one of the strangest things. Chapter 2760. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she took a closer look. After staring for some time, she frowned slightly. Could it be that the reason why these guards died was because the Second Palace Lord's profound chi had condensed into a blade and slit their necks? But that wasn't right. Why was it that when their necks were slit, there wasn't a drop of blood? Was it because this Second Palace Lord's skills were swift? No matter how fast it was impossible that there wasn't a drop of blood. What on earth was going on? This Second Palace Lord, what on earth is she doing? She actually killed her own people? Isn't she afraid that after killing those guards, no one will protect her? She only has those 4 personal maids by her side. If something really happened, will they be able to protect her? Are you silly? Immediately, a guest retorted, didn't we see how powerful those guards were? However, the Vice Palace Master of the Gloomy Palace only moved her sleeves and easily killed more than 10 guards at the same time. Can't you see her strength? The Second Palace Lord of the Nether Palace is totally able to fight against 100. Why would she need the protection of those guards? Isn't it because she's the Second Palace Lord of the Nether Palace, and these guards are unable to resist? Earlier Second Palace Lord Speed. If it was you, would you be able to evade it? That guest who had doubts immediately kept quiet. That's right, the moment the Second Palace Lord made her move. They were all enveloped by the tumbling airwaves, and felt as if their bodies and minds were being burned by raging flames. How would they have any energy left to evade the Second Palace Lord's attack? The guest suddenly recalled that when Yi Luo was surrounded by those guards, he only used his speed and agility to evade the guards' encirclement. But towards those guards, he obviously had no way to fight against them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have captured Messenger Yin and used him to threaten him, to make those guards leave the Miao tribe. Master Gei Wu said that Yi Luo was Earth Profound 9th grade and was about to step into the Sky Profound realm. Yi Luo wasn't a match for the guards of the Nether Palace. But the second palace lord of the Nether Palace could easily wipe out those guards. Which meant the second palace lord's profound grade was above Yi Luo. In other words, above the sky, profound realm. Furthermore, it wasn't just the sky profound realm. This idea caused an uproar among the guests. Towards the power and strength of the Dark Nether Palace, he was filled with yearning. After all, this other world was a place where the strong ruled and the weak were prey to the strong. Anything that could be explained with fists would never be explained with words. Previously, Yi Luo had been very powerful. The scale of the guests was tipping towards Yi Luo. Now, the vice palace master of Gloomy Palace had appeared. The balance of the crowd immediately tilted towards the Dark Palace. The assistant palace master sensed the respect and reverence the guests had for her. A trace of disdain appeared on her face. She narrowed her mesmerizing eyes and chuckled softly. Although it was separated by a layer of black gauze, one could still vaguely see the outline and lines of the face under the veil. Her smile and frown were extremely charming. These useless trash, I've already settled them now. Second Palace Lord's gaze slowly shifted onto Yi Luo as his smile deepened. It's your turn. As the second palace master's voice fell, her eyes, which were originally filled with smiles, at this moment, it suddenly froze into frost. Her arms opened wide as her body floated in midair. Chapter 2761. Light laughter spilled out from Second Palace Lord's mouth, extremely savage and extremely complacent. Suddenly, she raised her arm high up in the air. The surrounding airwaves surged and surged, flying towards the second palace master's raised arm to attack. Kacha! A bolt of lightning tore a huge hole in the inky black sky. Second Palace Lord floated in midair. That tore hole was right behind her. It made her look as though she was an Azura who had crawled out from the entrance of hell. It made one's hair stand on end ineffably. The inky black sky surged. The raging wind brought along a raging wave of energy as it spread majestically across the entire public square. Strong. What powerful energy. Everyone's heart almost stopped beating at this moment. This energy had absolutely surpassed Yi Luo's energy by far. Yi Luo, this young, genius young lady, was probably going to die here today. The guests felt some pity in their hearts. After Gu Jingyu sensed that man's powerful energy, his body suddenly turned stiff. You still don't intend to make a move? Miss Yi is not Secluded Palace's second palace lord's opponent. His entire body was tensed up, as though he was suppressing something. DMO Xian's gaze didn't turn as he stared at Yi Luo's figure without blinking, as though he didn't hear Gu Jingyu's words at all. Gu Jingyu gritted his teeth. This man was wearing a half mask on his face. He couldn't tell the emotions on this man's face at all. Wasn't this man Yi Luo's fiancé? Why was he so indifferent towards Yi Luo's misfortune? Since this fiancé of yours is afraid of death, then don't blame me for interfering in your relationship. Gu Jingyu sensed the second palace lord's profound qi fluctuating, and he couldn't bear it any longer. He flicked his sleeves and was about to charge towards Yi Luo's direction. However, a single hand stopped him in his tracks. Mo raised one hand lazily as his narrow phoenix eyes rose upwards. Young sect Master Gu, what are you trying to do? I'm going to save Miss Yi. Gu Jingyu raised his hand and chopped at Zomo's arm. Young Master Mo, please step aside. Anyone with discerning eyes can tell that you have feelings for little Qing Luo. You want to save her. Are you trying to let those people assume that you and little Qing Luo have an affair? Zomo didn't move at all. Gu Jingyu's face sunk, and his eyes were filled with ridicule as he shot a glance at DMO Xian's direction. Yes, this young patriarch admires Miss Yi. Since Lady Ye's fiancé doesn't know how to cherish Lady Yi then, this young master will cherish her. Do you think you're a match for the vice palace master of the Secluded Palace? Zoemo laughed. Cherish? Running to your death and making little Qing Luo feel guilty towards you, remembering you in her heart for the rest of her life. This kind of cherishing? Gu Jingyu clenched his fists. This young lord is indeed not the second palace master's opponent, but to have this young lord stand here and watch, this young lord cannot do that. But this young lord will not let you make a move. Zomo smiled elegantly as his arm suddenly hooked around Gu Jingyu's shoulder. Following that, he forcefully pulled Gu Jingyu over to Gue Wu's side. As he walked, he said, "Young sect master Gu, little Qing Luo's fiancé's feelings towards little Qing Luo, you won't understand. Just stand here obediently. Don't let little Qing Luo be distracted and drag her down." Gu Jingyu was still struggling, but no matter what, he was unable to break free from Zomo's restraint. Because of this, Gu Jingyu didn't see it. Chapter 2762. His eyes were focused and serious. In his mind, there was a blurry face that he couldn't see clearly. That face was smiling at him. Her coquettish voice seemed to be able to soothe all the bad emotions in his heart. "Xian, I want to grow up alone. I want to rely on my own strength to stand by your side and walk side by side with you." The girl was smiling. Vaguely, he seemed to see that alluring face. It only took an instant for everything to return to its previous tranquility. Dmo Xian shut his deep eyes. He forcefully suppressed the restlessness that was constantly surging in his heart. He knew that person was Lil Luo Air, even if their appearances were different. He could also confirm that person was Lil Luo Air. He promised Lil Luo Air it would give Lil Luo a chance to grow. He should believe in Lil Luo. His Lil Luo Air would become stronger when meeting strong opponents and weaker when meeting weak opponents. There was absolutely no problem. However, there was always a voice in his heart that kept floating in his mind. They were clamoring for him to charge forward. Protect his Lil Luo Air. Protect his Lil Luo. He would not let Lil Luo be harmed in the slightest. Dmo Xian clenched his fist tightly. As he clenched it even harder, everyone's attention was gathered on Yi Qing Luo's side. No one noticed it. Dmo Xian's eyes were hidden under the mask. His gaze towards Yi Qing Luo was filled with determination and forbearance. Sometimes they were infatuated with each other. This was the struggle between the love worm and Dmo Xian's consciousness. Love Gu activated his consciousness. He wanted him to protect Yi Qing Luo unconditionally, whereas the memories regarding Yi Qing Luo kept replaying in Dmo Xian's mind. Such a crisscrossing consciousness was activated. This made Dmo Xian's body gradually tensed up. However, no one noticed this. Even if he found out, he would only treat it as worrying about Yi Qing Luo. The other side, Yi Qing Luo raised her head up high and squinted her eyes slightly, looking at the second palace lord who was suspended in midair. The corners of her mouth curled into a teasing smile, revealing a hint of carelessness. It was as if he didn't care about the second palace master at all. But Yi Qing Luo indeed didn't treat the second palace lord as anything. She admitted, the assistant palace master was indeed very strong. Indeed, it was above her profound rank. However, it was not that she was no match for the deputy palace master. Just as Dmo Xian had said, she had a physique that grew stronger when encountering the strong and weaker when encountering the weak. The stronger the opponent, only then would her fighting spirit be aroused. The stronger the opponent, only then would she be able to gain actual combat experience and grow. Most importantly, as the saying goes, the connoisseur recognizes the artistry, while the layman enjoys the show. In the eyes of the crowd, the surging waves of terrifying aura of the second palace master were extremely horrifying and intimidating. But in the eyes of Yi Qing Luo and the other top exponents, that second palace master kept showing off and creating cool special effects. From the start, it didn't have the slightest bit of actual strength. In the air, layers upon layers of airwaves were constantly surging. Behind the second palace master, the streaks of lightning that had been torn apart continuously converged and spread out bit by bit. The profound chi, at this moment, suddenly expanded. The second palace master's gaze was like a torch as he stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo. His raised arm instantly pointed downwards towards Yi Qing Luo's face. "Anyone who dares to offend my secluded palace shall be killed without mercy." The raging waves of profound qi were like huge waves surging as it attacked the biting, cold, profound qi. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel the surging profound qi blowing towards her face. Chapter 2763. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as the smile on her lips blossomed like a poppy. His eyes were gradually filled with excitement. Her eyes flickered and her entire temperament suddenly changed. She was an elegant and lovely little beauty. At this moment, she had turned into a bloodthirsty and enchanting demon. Her eyes were filled with smiles as she looked at the incoming attack. This time, she had no intention of dodging. Instead, her palms moved and her fingertips danced like a dancing fairy. A red feather fan appeared on her fingertips. Swoosh! The feather fan was opened and the red profound glow lingered around the feather fan. Under the lightning cliff, it gave off an extremely demonic aura, like a scorching flame burning continuously. With Yi Qing Luo as the epicenter, the ground started to crack, densely like a spider web as the cracks spread out. All these seemed to have taken quite a bit of effort. In actual fact, it was merely a moment. Bam! Vice Palace Lord's attack landed directly. Dust and thick and terrifying air waves rolled, enveloping Yi Qing Luo's surroundings instantly. It engulfed and covered up everything in the surroundings. Everyone's gazes were fixed on that area, which was engulfed by the numerous air waves. One by one, they shook their heads and sighed. Indeed. Earth Profound 9th grade was after all not comparable to the sky mystic Overlord and above. However, with just one move, he had easily taken care of a 9th grade Earth Profound Realm Shin practitioner. The power of the Gloomy Palace was indeed well-deserved. Some even felt that if the Vice Palace Lord was so powerful, then the Grand Palace Lord of the Gloomy Palace could be on the same level as the Overlord. No wonder the Gloomy Palace dared to say such words. To be able to surpass the Imperial Palace within a month. Looking at the Gloomy Palace, they could easily annihilate a bunch of powerful guards. Another Earth Profound 9th grade cultivator, which Master Ghost Martial Artist had high hopes of, this Gloomy Palace could absolutely surpass the Imperial Palace. Ding! All of a sudden, a crisp sound could be heard. The sound was extremely hurried. Instantly, it attracted everyone's attention, only to see in that dust and air waves. A bewitching red glow gradually spread out. The boundless air waves rolled like a tide. In just a few breaths' time, he had completely suppressed that powerful air wave. The red light continued to spread. It dispersed the chi wave created by the second Palace Master. Amidst the red light, the young girl's red dress fluttered in the wind like a blossoming rose, extremely flirtatious. The girl held a burning fan in her hand, and her fingers danced in the air. The fan opened and closed like a fire elf flying in the airwaves. Clang! There was the sound of things colliding again. Yi Qing Luo opened her arms wide. The fan in her hand, unknowingly, had already left Yi Qing Luo's hand. It was moving at an extremely fast speed. He broke through the layers of air waves created by the second Palace Master. It struck a long sword in front of the second Palace Master. The instant the fan hit the long sword, the sword trembled. The layer of black mist that shrouded the long sword suddenly dispersed. Thump! A heavy object fell to the ground. The long sword fell to the ground. At the same time, the body of the second Palace Master, who was floating in the air, swayed and unexpectedly fell down uncontrollably. The second Palace Master's robes fluttered like butterfly wings. The black veil on her face was lifted, revealing half of her face. Yi Qing Luo's gaze coincidentally fell on that half of her face. Suddenly, her eyes dimmed and her body froze. That face, was it her illusion? If she didn't remember wrongly. Chapter 2764. Damn it. This unforeseen event caused the Assistant Palace Master's tone to be filled with killing intent. She raised her wrist abruptly, just as she was about to land on the ground. a thick black fog surrounded her body. His rapidly falling body instantly landed steadily on the ground, as light as a feather. She steadied herself and flipped her wrist once again. The long sword on the ground seemed to be sucked by something as it returned to her palm. Second Palace Lord's weapon is just a long sword. The young lady's clear voice was heard from behind. Her hand, which was holding the long sword, stiffened. Immediately, she turned sideways and tried to escape. But her feet had just started to move. He placed a hand on the Second Palace Master's shoulder. The young lady's extremely melodious voice was heard clearly. "Isn't Second Palace Lord going to clear the name of Secluded Palace? Why did you run away so impatiently the moment you saw me?" The young lady was still smiling. That soft and slender fingers which were pinching on her shoulder looked weak and boneless. But she couldn't break free at all. As for the young lady, she didn't move at all. Under Yi Qing Luo's strength, the Second Palace Master turned around. She raised her eyes and met with a pair of narrow and devilish eyes. That pair of eyes were as bright as the stars, sparkling brightly. And faintly, there was a glint of flowing light. Just a glance. The Second Palace Master had a feeling as though her soul was being sucked away. It was Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's seemingly elegant face, but her aura did not diminish at all. The Second Palace Master's heart thumped fiercely. Her mind recalled that person's exhortation in her ear. "Be careful, especially towards that lady named Yi Qing Luo. You must be on guard. Her ability is not as good as yours, but her potential is terrifying." She thought that in this lower realm, even if she met any genius cultivator, that person could only be considered as a genius from the lower realm. Because of that, she didn't put that person's exhortation to heart. However, at that moment, she seemed to have understood what that person meant. The Second Palace Master's eyes turned slightly cold. She had underestimated her opponent. This time round, she would not give Yi Qing Luo any chance to retaliate. A thought flashed across his mind. The Vice Palace Master's expression suddenly became cold and gloomy. At the same time, profound qi surged from the Assistant Palace Master's body. Two streams of profound qi that looked like black fog shot out from her body, transforming into two rays of profound light. With an irresistible force, it shot towards Yi Qing Luo's face, directly piercing downwards. But the Assistant Palace Master's plan failed again. Just as the Second Palace Master's expression changed, Yi Qing Luo had already sensed it. At the moment when the Xian Qi of the Second Palace Master surged wildly, she immediately let go of her hands and moved to a safe place. Yi Qing Luo wasn't flustered in the slightest. The expression on her face was calm and tranquil. It was a stark contrast to the Deputy Palace Master's eyes, which were filled with rage. Is the Second Palace Lord getting serious? Yi Qing Luo's sweet voice was mixed with a slight smile. She looked like the girl next door, pure and innocent. However, the Second Palace Master could see it clearly. The young lady's smiling eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. The Vice Palace Master's eyes darkened. Her profound qi surged once again. Her eyes were aghast as she gave Yi Qing Luo a warning stare. Chapter 2765. As she said that, she looked meaningfully at the long sword in Second Palace Lord's hand. Second Palace Lord's eyes were filled with emotions as her bewitching eyes stared widely. "How do you know that this weapon isn't my weapon?" Yi Qing Luo shook her glower flame fan and held it against her lower jaw. The long sword's body is wide, and the sword hilt is thick, and the surface is stained with too much filthy blood stench. It doesn't look like a lady's weapon. She raised her brows and continued confidently. This long sword should be given to Second Palace Lord by someone who values Second Palace Lord, to protect Second Palace Lord. Earlier, Second Palace Lord was suspended in midair, when she was creating all kinds of powerful pressure. The long sword was firmly placed in front of the Second Palace Master's body. It was because she sensed that the long sword didn't look like Second Palace Lord's weapon. That was why Yi Qing Luo directly struck down that long sword. As expected, just as she had guessed, this Second Palace Lord was the source of most of the profound energy. It was because of that long sword. What a observant young lady. When Second Palace Lord heard that, she didn't continue to refute. She sneered as she placed the long sword on her body and spoke coldly. Young lady, since you're looking for death, I shall fulfill your wish. Her words had just ended. Second Palace Lord opened her fingers. A long whip with 9 segments appeared in her hand. The surrounding guests all sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw that long whip clearly. On that long whip, there was a tide of black fog which kept surging. Faintly, there was a flash of lightning like flowing light. It gave out a hissing sound. Was it a long whip or a poisonous snake? No matter how the crowd looked, they couldn't see clearly what the soft object under the fog was. When Yiqing Luo saw Second Palace Lord's weapon, her expression dimmed slightly as the serene look in her eyes turned deeper. Long whip. It was indeed a long whip. She didn't see it wrongly. This Second Palace Lord's face. Yiqing Luo stared at the layer of black veil on Second Palace Lord's face. Her gaze was burning as though it was burning. Second Palace Lord was distracted by Yiqing Luo's presumptuous gaze. She clenched the long whip tightly as the black qi lingered around it and struck directly. A powerful wave of qi swept out. The surging waves once again filled the air. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a sneer as she casually played with the glower flame fan in her hands. The moment the Second Palace Master's attack landed, Yiqing Luo's figure swayed. The two sides clashed. This time round, Yiqing Luo didn't adopt any battle tactics. Instead, he faced the Assistant Palace Master head-on. Powerful airwaves constantly rolled in the air. The sky that was as dark as ink was covered densely with dark clouds at this moment, and it was mixed with lightning and thunder, causing the atmosphere to be extremely strange. Over here, the battle was in full swing. On the other side, it was completely impossible to see the silhouettes of both parties clearly, and they could only feel the vast and boundless profound energy. At this moment, the guests, who were bursting forth and rolling about, were in an uproar. A guest pointed at the two people fighting, his face full of disbelief. Did I see wrongly? Just now I saw. Glowing flame fan? That woman called Yi Luo has the gourd flame fan? Gourd flame fan. Isn't that the weapon used by that young hero of the Western continent? Gourd flame fan. There seems to be only one in this world. Why is it in Yi Luo's hands? The appearance of the gourd flame fan aroused the suspicions of numerous guests. Chapter 2766. Most of the people in Nirvana Realm knew about Yiqing Luo's deeds. Naturally, they knew about Yiqing Luo's exclusive weapon. Suddenly, the guests thought of something as they exclaimed, Yi Luo, Yiqing Luo. The Overlord has publicly acknowledged the future mistress of the Imperial Palace, dressed in red, devastatingly beautiful. Overlord, red, Yi Luo, Yi Luo, Yiqing Luo. The guests at this moment in their minds regrouped all these symbols together. Everything indicated the lady named Yi Luo in front of them was the little hero of the West Continent, Yiqing Luo, and only Yiqing Luo could possess the only glower flame fan in the world. And only Yiqing Luo could get so much attention from the Overlord. And only Yiqing Luo, at such a young age, her profound grade had already broken through the sky profound stage, becoming the only one in Nirvana Realm at such a young age to step into the sky profound stage. Not Earth profound 9th grade, but sky profound supreme. She is Yiqing Luo, the Yiqing Luo who is known as the female version of the Overlord. Suddenly, among the guests, a sharp female voice was heard, only to see a slender figure in a cloak, covering her face, suddenly stood up and stared at the two people who were entangled with each other. Her tone was filled with disbelief. On the side, a figure in the same cloak grabbed the arm of the lady in front and shook it anxiously. The lady in front turned her head to look at the lady behind her and impatiently shook her hand away. That lady staggered and fell onto the ground. The surrounding was a long table. The lady's head directly hit the long table when she fell. A loud dong sound was heard. It was extremely loud. When the crowd heard it, they felt a pain in their head. But unfortunately, That lady rubbed her forehead and stood up without a word. Not even a cry of pain was made. The lady in front didn't feel guilty because of her own actions. The wide black cloak covered her expression, only to hear her slightly hoarse voice, sharp and ear-piercing. How could she be Yi Qing Luo? Impossible. She is obviously a lowly student. The guests only felt that this voice sounded extremely familiar. But at this moment, they couldn't recall. The guests sitting next to the woman suddenly looked at each other. Then, they stood up at the same time and rushed toward the woman who was rubbing her forehead. The woman was caught off guard and her hands were tightly held by the two guests. The guest raised his hand and lifted the woman's cloak. Under the cloak, a small and delicate face was revealed. The expressions of the two guests suddenly changed. Princess Bailon? Wasn't this woman the Northern Wave Continent's princess, Xiao Lingling? Why was Xiao Lingling here? Wasn't the Northern Wave imperial family in imminent danger? Xiao Lingling's position as the princess was already in jeopardy. How could Xiao Lingling appear here? Wait, this is Xiao Lingling. Then, who was that sharp-tongued lady? When a woman saw that Xiao Lingling's face had been exposed, she cursed softly, "Trash!" He quickly turned around, intending to leave. However, the crowd who had already found out about Yi Qing Luo's true identity. He couldn't wait to find a chance to curry favor with Yi Qing Luo. How could they possibly let off that lady who obviously had enmity with Yi Qing Luo? Immediately, a few guests swarmed up and held that woman down, lifting the black cloak. That person, wasn't she East Wave's young princess, Lanling Nuo?